Hello everybody and welcome to This Nintendo Life episode 320. My name is NBZ and I have a question for you, Bally. It's a very important question.
Oh boy.
It's going to require a lot of thought on your part. I don't know the answer to the question, but judging by, what you think about me, how many episodes, because this is my current state, how many episodes of this podcast do you think I've recorded in my pants? It's a great question to ask because I have realized that being in this, flat on my own, just being able to do what I want, I am often just in my pants, and it's very freeing. Also, the heating here is great, so I don't really need to worry about temperature, so I'm never really cold. But it is something that I do frequently do, and I'm just curious what you think, because I think I have an answer in my head. Percentage of the whole episodes of this entire podcast.
I think
how many there've been,
because this is your new flat is not just the first time you've owned a place yourself. I think it's one of the first times that you've been living independently without any other family or flatmates. So yes. I think in fairness to your family members and previous flatmates, I'm gonna hope you had more on than just your pants. So I'm going to go quite high on the percentage with the whole wearing the pants versus wearing something more than pants. British definition of pants, by the way.
Yes, we should say, yes, underpants, to be clear here. Because I'm sure a lot of American listeners are like, that's odd. Why are you saying that? That's a normal thing. Everyone just wears trousers. No. We're talking about underpants here.
So I'm gonna go over 95. Let's go 96%. Of the 319 previous episodes, MBZ has been wearing something more than just his pants.
I'm afraid to disappoint you, Bal, because I think it's actually closer to I think it's probably closer to 40% of the time I'm in my pants.
40%? Your poor family members and flatmates.
No, mainly family. Well, it's I guess percentage of time we've been doing this show, most of it was in Harrow, right, with my grandparents, and
they're just used to you in your pants.
Oh, yeah.
Fair enough.
Oh yeah, I would walk around my pants all the time in that house, especially because my room was really hot. That was the problem. The room was always really hot, and so I am just sitting there like that for the most part. So yeah, I do think, unfortunately, embarrassingly for me, probably about 40% of these episodes I am in my pants recording. So just for everyone, also in the summer, especially when it's really fucking hot and it's getting worse and worse every year, in the UK, across the world, obviously, because global warming, but in the UK especially, it's just awful. And so, every summer you can guarantee every single episode I'm in my pants. So now we're in a different world where even in winter in this flat, it's still pretty warm. Yeah. So it's gonna stay pretty high, I would say.
We're now mid-April. How is your flat handling mid-April? Not that April is warm. We've also had one of the coldest Aprils on record, so it's is it okay so far?
It's definitely warm, but sun cracks through the windows quite a lot. And I've only got curtains in my bedroom still. I need to get curtains for the living room still, so that needs to be sorted out.
Okay, and you're just going curtains, no blinds?
I think just curtains for the moment. Yeah, okay. I think I'm okay with it. I might eventually. Yeah, they're doing the job. Also, it's kind of okay because I do kind of want to wake up properly on time, for things sometimes. So having a bit of light cracking through is not the worst thing in the world for me. So I'm fine with it. But yeah, it's definitely warm, but I am able to open the doors and make it get a lot of breeze in here. So it's still kind of coldish outside, which helps balance the temperature out. But I am slightly worried when we hit summer how things will be. I hope that it's just the balance inside is fine because it always is pretty same temperature wise, and maybe the insulation works both to keep out cold and to keep out hot. But I don't know. Don't have my fingers crossed for it.
You're not wrong on that, and our flat was similar to that. But there came a point in the day where the bricks outside just got heated up by the sun, and it was eventually just an oven. It just became a furnace.
Right.
It was hard.
Interesting.
Okay. Is your flat red bricked on the outside?
No, it's not red bricked. There are bricks.
There are bricks.
I don't know.
I just thought the type of red bricks were quite susceptible to just heating up in summer on the one flat.
Yeah.
But
interesting. I'll see. I'll definitely be reporting it on this show because that's what we do here.
I think I'm safe to say I've been pretty much fully clothed for like 98% of podcasting. I think I'm pretty confident.
Yeah, is there any episode you can think of when you were in your pants, man?
Oh, I think there were times in London and Brussels that were excruciatingly hot. And Brussels was a very similar climate to London. Like, it got really hot. They're just real stagnant summers. So I reckon I might have had less on for some of those episodes. I think. That's
interesting. What have you? That is the real question.
Oh God!
Have either of us ever recorded the podcast naked? I don't think we have.
I choose not to answer. Look, there's a reason we've not gone video after a decade of podcasting.
That's true. That's true.
Like, so there we go.
There's many good reasons to only do audio, mainly being like cutting stupid shit out that we say that we don't want to put on air. But yes, that's another one. Not being on video allows us to, if we so wish. One of these episodes, Bally, I'm going to do a thing. Okay, within the next year, all right. Now, everyone out there listening, you are also involved in this. Within the next year, one of these episodes, I'm going to record it completely naked.
We're losing listeners by the second.
No, Bally. No, here's the thing. So in a year's time, the people out there have to guess which episode that I was not clothed for. Okay, I'm just going to put it out there and see if anyone can figure it out. All right. So there's a real detective thing that I'm putting out to the universe. They're all going to figure it out.
Giant Bomb are doing a game with themselves. I know you're a little bit behind on Voicemail Dump Truck, but
yes,
they're playing a game this year where the aim of the game is to get to the end of the year, and another member of Giant Bomb has sent in a voicemail dump truck voice note, and they have to get to the end of the year without the other members of Giant Bomb recognizing that person's voice. And there's already been one or two people caught out, but I don't know. It's because sometimes they think that sounds a lot like Jan. Anyway, it's very entertaining. Okay. So I'm all up for some
That's
sort
fun.
of your version of this game is a bit different, but I see where you're going.
Slightly different, yeah. I'm still in the phase of Dumb Truck where they're talking about how many hot dogs they can eat in a year and if they're going to do that or not. So I'm still catching up. But hi, we're here not to talk about being naked podcasting. We're instead here to talk about video games made by the company called Nintendo. You've heard of them, I think, once or twice before. They're a big deal out there, over in Japan and in the rest of the world now. It's video games. I'm NBZ. Hi, I'm joined by Bally. How's it going, Bally?
It's going good. Why are we doing the intro again? We just done the intro.
I don't know. Well, Bally, do you want to tell the fine folks at home, now that we've done our intro, what the show is actually going to be about?
For the first segment, we're going to talk about the games that we have been playing, and then for the second segment, we're going to do some emails.
Yes, some emails indeed. I should say, we're not talking about the Mario Galaxy movie because I have still not seen it, mainly because I've had a very busy week at just going to work and doing management stuff and lots of discussions, conversations, and
espresso martinis,
eating espresso martinis, lots of things of that nature. So I've not seen it. I don't know what my plan is with it. If I am going to, here's the thing, because I have the BAFTA membership card, Bally, and that means I can go and see free movies, but only at certain cinemas and only Mondays through Thursday. So I need to time it properly to when, like, I'm in the office and then after work I decide to go and find somewhere to watch the Mario Galaxy movie. So I might do that next week. But if not, if we never get to it, I don't think anything's really lost from the conversation, to be honest with you.
You might be able to see it later when it's not in cinemas or something if you want to. I don't know, but
whenever I see it, we'll talk about it there. We'll do a short bit about it probably because I don't think there's really that much to say. But anyway, that is not going to be on today's show. So just to set expectations. Great. Let's talk about the games we've been playing, Bally. So it is going to be a big Pokemon episode. Lots of Pokemon happening. I have been playing Pokémon Champions. So for those who don't know, who have started listening, I don't know, in the last few years, did not know where this podcast came from.
At this point, this is the vast majority of listeners, I want to claim.
Do you think?
I think so. I don't know. I think if you go back to some of our surveys we've done, most people started listening, 5, 6, 7, 8 years into the podcast. So, yeah.
Okay, interesting. So I was on YouTube since I was like 16 years old. I had a Pokemon channel on YouTube where I played competitive Pokemon for about 7 years.
This is 2006. 7?
No, 2008.
Eight.
It was 2008
Okay.
till around 2014. So it was about 6 years on YouTube. It felt much longer than that. I mean, it's a funny thing about growing up is like 6 years doesn't feel like anything anymore, whereas back then it felt like 2 decades, right? Like it was.
a whole
I was like,
school
wow, I'm
career.
a veteran. Yeah. I've been doing this for a long time, but it was only 6 years that I spent playing competitive Pokemon on YouTube. And so obviously I have a good background in that, and that's, I started posting the podcast onto that YouTube channel at a point in time. Now we have our own stuff, it's all separate from that. But anyway, that's my history on the internet, and really the reason I have my job today and all this stuff is really stems back to competitive Pokemon and YouTube stuff there. So obviously I've not played competitive Pokemon in a long time. The last time I kind of checked in with it was, I think, around Sword and Shield on Showdown. I think every era I just go on to Pokemon Showdown, which, for context for everybody, Showdown is like an online battle simulation website where you can go and you can build teams very quickly, very easily, very snappily, and you can just go and play against other people. This is a thing, obviously, as a concept, competitive Pokemon, very hard to get into because there's a lot of work and effort that needs to be done. Bali and I both did it when we were younger, and yeah, it took time. I remember the weekend that me and Ali T went up to his house up north, and it was an entire weekend where we were just training and EVing Pokemon, and like to get one team back then, like we spent like weeks getting a single team, and obviously over time I was able to call in favors from people I knew on the internet, and also like hacking and pokegenning and pokesabbing became a thing.
We weren't even into podcasts at the time. Could you imagine if we could have just listened to podcasts while EV training and IV breeding and all these things? We would have absolutely hammered through the pods.
It's fine, we were listening to Green Day instead, so it was all good. But yeah, it's definitely like a thing that took a lot of effort, but was enjoyable, right? Because there's a satisfaction in like doing all that work. And it's interesting because I've heard a lot of people on podcasts talk about how like, man, like the barrier to entry was really, really high, and like it's it's something that glad that they reduced it because it's way too complex for everybody. And I am like, I do agree with that, but also we were like 15 years old and we figured it out, like I don't think it is that hard. I think it obviously takes time, it takes effort, it takes patience, but
Cerebi does the hard part for us anyway.
Yeah,
it had all the stats,
exactly,
all the info we needed, and
right. And I think I think if kids around that age can figure it out, I think there's lots of people who can do it. It just there's lots of stuff
instant
involved.
gratification these days, MBZ. That's
I know
about. Attention deficit,
it has changed a lot, but anyway, like Showdown was very nice because Showdown was essentially a way to quickly get a team up and running, see if it worked or not, and then you could go into the game and like use that to build out an actual team. And over the generations it got easier and easier. Like I remember in X and Y it was just like a lot quicker for me to make a Pokemon. I was at uni at the time, and it was just much faster to do that. So I remember that was relatively easy. Obviously in generation 4 and 5 it was quite easy because at a certain point in time, people were using ACE cards or they were using R4 cartridges, which allowed you to basically create the Pokemon file on your computer, transfer it to the game, and use it there, which is what majority of people did. I should say as well, like, the competitive scene, the VGC, was also kind of like building up around that time, and everyone knows that Nintendo are kind of narcs on this stuff, and they're like, you have to use real Pokemon, the only ones that exist. I will tell you for a guarantee, every single person who won those championships in the UK, who was in the top leagues, were Pokesabbing their Pokemon. But they did it to a degree where Nintendo couldn't know what it was, right? It was so indecipherable from actual ones in the game, they couldn't really do anything about it. And also, like, to compete at that level, you have to be able to do that stuff to quickly change things on the fly, because otherwise you're not going to be able to adapt, and the competition is going to get around you. So it's very funny because, they have like all these checks and hacking checks now, and I think it's probably have a lot better beat on it now than back then. But back then everybody was using those, right? So it wasn't, I think it was frowned upon at the time. Like when we were in the forums, we were like, oh, you should never do that. And eventually I got to a point where I was like, well, this is stupid. It's just like, it's time wasting, and I'd rather get to the part where I'm actually using them and learning like from battles themselves, actually competing within the space.
It's like the Pokemon Company enjoy the lore of everyone's a Pokemon breeder and they're a real expert. It's like, okay, right, fine, but at the same time you're still making it easier generally for people to do it in the game. So obviously the natural conclusion of making it easier is, well, Ace Card just does it overnight. So, it's just kind of one of those things.
Yeah, and so, like, for the longest time, I think Pokemon competitively has been a little more inaccessible because of this stuff, right? It's a whole world to learn. It's a whole thing to understand. It's a whole new place to be. But it is a thing that I think a lot of people would like to get into, but there's just too big a barrier to
It's
entry.
wild when you compare it to, like, maybe the shooter video game industry or a game like Overwatch that I'm playing a lot of at the moment, where that game is very much designed for, like, oh, you can come in as a complete noob, get a bit stronger at the game all through the game, and then become a champion, join, a team, and take on the world and events and stuff. And, like, they very much support that in a way that is just done so differently to the Pokemon Company and Nintendo, where it all has to be so parceled up, and, like, the game that they sell to the vast majority of people is so different to the competitive experience. Whereas for Overwatch, yes, there's a casual audience, but it's not the game they're playing is not actually any different to the game that the pros are playing.
Right. And I do think the distinct difference with Pokemon is that this is a thing that almost was created by the community to some degree, where, like, take a modern Nintendo game like Splatoon, you actually can do what you're talking about with Overwatch with Splatoon, right? Which is to say,
exactly.
Like, you can just, like, go online and guides and all that sort of stuff. You don't need to do all this esoteric stuff. It's just about getting better at the thing that already exists within the context that it already exists in. Versus Pokemon, where, like, the game is about, like, a single player thing going through. And hey, you can fight your friends if you want with these Pokemon, but it's not really, like, it's the level between getting prepared for one of those things versus the other is totally different, because Pokemon, you have to do a lot more homework, I would argue, versus, like, playing these other shooters. It's like, well, you're just playing the game the whole time, and so you're naturally getting better by playing the game. Pokemon, you can try and play online with the Pokemon that you have, but none of them are going to be good enough, because it's all about stats and it's all about numbers, and so ultimately you will never beat a certain person if you have Pokemon that are just inferior to that person, basically. So it's not about skill, it is about building the actual Pokemon that are good enough to take on everything else, basically. So yeah, it's very interesting, very unique. Fast forward to last year, where they announced Pokemon Champions, and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. The thing that really got me, like, standing out my seat and being like, what the fuck is going on, is that they showed, I don't know if it was the initial trailer, it might have, I think the initial trailer was just like, oh, we're going to do a competitive Pokemon thing, like Stadium or whatever, and I was like, oh, that's interesting, it's probably not going to be very good. The thing that got me interested was when they did the video, where partway through, they showed sliders, and they said, like, oh, you can change the stats of your Pokemon, and they showed a fucking slider, just like it was in Showdown, and I was like, this is it. They fucking finally did it. I have actually been, like, asking for this, or, like, hoping that they would do it, but never thinking they would actually do it, because it's, like, the most, like, hardcore thing possible. But I was like, what if they just let you just move the sliders, right? And give you the stats that you need to, instead of, like, doing all this other stuff. And when that happened, I was like, oh, wow, okay, they're actually leaning into it here. They are actually building a product that is solely for the purpose of competitive play, without the other story elements, without, like, catching them, like, without, like, the kind of core USP of Pokemon. It is just like, here's the combat of it, the turn-based battling, let's get people into this as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And that's where I had a lot of expectations, right? Because if you do that, it means, okay, now a lot of people are going to be playing this instead of Showdown, potentially, right? Like, because I think Showdown is functional and fine, but it's ultimately very ugly. It's like, they're grabbing sprites from the game, they're throwing it onto very plain backgrounds, the animations aren't very good. Like, it is a simulator in every sense of the word.
Could the Pokemon Company shut down Showdown if they wanted to?
I think they could. Yeah. I think people would riot, and it would be awful for their reputation if they did do it.
Yeah, they're aware of it, and they let it exist because it does in many ways help them, I'm sure. And
it does, totally, and especially because, like, a lot of the competitors in VGC are playing on there as a means of training, right?
Exactly.
Like, as a means of getting better at the game. And so if you take that, you're actually undercutting, like, one of your most important groups of people. So I think that they tolerate it because they know that it actually is helping them ultimately. But this, with Champions, feels like a shot across the bow to be like, okay, we are now going to eat takes a bit of that market away from Showdown, potentially, right? And this is all leading up to the point of it coming out. And so, yes, I was very excited for this. I was like, oh, this is great, because like I still enjoy competitive Pokemon as a thing that exists out there in the world, right? It's a mental game. It's a game about reading your opponent. It's a game about understanding of the space and the meta and what things are capable of, and speed stats and all these things, right? You have to be aware of so many things. It's basically, and I always described it when I was younger as chess with like 7 million more options, basically, because it is a mental game. It is about predicting your opponent. It is about like playing 3 or 4 moves ahead of where the game is.
It's got a bit more poker to it than chess, I'd argue. Like there's a bit of like
I think that's a good angle on it as well. Yes, there's definitely,
'cause you've got some percentage chances of like, well, what's the least worst option? I'm in a bad position,
right?
What's the least worst option? But yeah.
Yes, and there's also like a bit of luck balance in there as well, right?
Yeah.
Critical hits and things like that are nice. I think the game would not be as exciting without those, because they lend that like turn of the tables like situations that could happen, and I think it benefits the game ultimately. But yeah, it is a very thrilling game because of those elements and like reading what's going on and what you think is going to happen. And so I was wanting to play. That's why every generation I jumped into Showdown and just checked it out, because I'm like, just kind of interested in like what people are using, what's new, what the different changes that have been made, all this sort of stuff. But ultimately, if I wanted to get back into it, like on the video game side of things, I would have to put in hours and hours and hours of training and grinding and leveling up and breeding, IV breeding, doing EV training as well. All these like levels and layers, finding the right TMs, attaching them, getting sometimes moves up through breeding as well, and so you have to like line that stuff up. The most fucking crazy it ever got was like having a Pokemon with, I can't remember what ability it was, but I think Kadabra or Alakazam had it, and you'd use that ability to then distinguish a nature from a Pokemon you were catching, or like a gender or something of a Pokemon you were catching, because you could then get it to have that specific thing, so you can then breed it and pass it down. Loads of different things, using Dittos as well to do all this stuff. So many different, like having specific Dittos with specific IVs that would then pass those IVs down to Pokemon. So much. It's the amount of depth that is in this game is actually kind of mad. But
I remember Ali Tio was saying, I gave up when I tried to get a quad floorless Swampert. That was like his thing to hill to die on. And I think before Ali Tio, I'd given up on going for flawless stats quite early on. I went for like very high IV stats to just like keep my sanity, which helped a bit.
Yeah, I think when we were breeding, we were trying to like get max stats in like the 2 that mattered for sweepers.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, exactly. And then for like tanks and like defensive Pokemon, you try and get 3, but it'd always be very difficult. Then it gets even more difficult, because then sometimes you want 0 speed IVs for like a trick room thing and things like that. There's lots of there's loads. It's the level of depth is kind of astounding for what is ostensibly a children's video game, right? But I wouldn't want to go back into the mines, essentially. I was like, this is great. I'm enjoying it on Showdown for a little bit, for like 5 minutes.
You were in the mines too long.
Yeah, I was in the mine. I'm not going back to the mines, I've been there. I've done that. And so I was like, well, I don't know if I'm ever going to play like proper, like on a Nintendo console competitive Pokemon again. And so this being announced, all this stuff happening, leading up to this coming out as a free-to-play video game, I was like, this is perfect. It's going to be on mobile, so it's accessible to even more people, and so on Switch as well.
Pretty cool. It's free-to-play. I don't think I'd realised that. That's amazing.
Oh, did you not know it was free-to-play? Yeah, cool. Yeah. It's free-to-play.
I need to play
which leads into a lot of maybe criticism that people have had of it to some degree. But, so, Pokémon Champions, it comes out, and it is... it has a rough launch, let's say. It's been riddled with a lot of problems. A lot of issues have been raised by the community. And I think ultimately the biggest problem for me personally is that you cannot play in the way that I have learned to play. So Pokemon, as a format, has had many different, let's say, gimmicks over the years. I would call, from 6th generation onwards is when the real gimmicks started to happen, by which I mean Mega Evolutions, and then you have Dynamaxing, you've got Z moves, you've got terastalizing. So
Gigantamaxing as well. So.
I think Gigantamaxing is part of Dynamaxing. I want to say,
obviously.
I think that was. I think that was like an added thing. But I think that was Sun and Moon, was it? Dynamaxing and Gigantamaxing.
You're asking the wrong person.
Maybe that was Sword and Shield.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I think Sword and... I don't fucking remember. I think Sword and Shield was Dynamaxing, whatever the fuck. Yeah, anyway, you have all these gimmicks, right? You could argue that the gimmicks in previous generations were... 5th generation had triple battles, which was a new format that was added. In 3rd gen, they added double battles, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, you could say that they have always added a, quote, gimmick, but I'd say some of these are things that have stuck around longer than others. Double battles specifically has stuck around the most because that is the chosen competitive format for the Nintendo Championships. So Nintendo and the Pokemon Company run their own league, the VGC it's called, not to be confused with the website VGC. This is the Video Game Championships is what they call it for Pokemon, as opposed to the TCG, which is the Trading Card Game Championships, right? So that's why they distinguish those two with the different acronyms. But doubles was the chosen standard for Nintendo's own tournaments. And not only that, it wasn't doubles, it was bring 6 Pokemon, choose 4. And I think part of the reason they did this is because doubles resolves much faster than singles does. And so you get a lot more moves happening, a lot more Pokemon dying quickly within a shorter amount of time. And if you reduce it to 4 Pokemon, then it makes the battles not last that long. And I think what they were looking for was a format that wasn't going to take forever and ever. Because, Bally, as you will well know, back in the days of Diamond and Pearl, I would have matches, 6v6 singles, that could sometimes last up to an hour and a half in length. Part of that being the slowness of Diamond and Pearl and how long it took for, let's say, for example, Blissy's health to go down to 0, where the meme was always go make a cup of coffee while Blissey dies because it would take fucking forever. So I think they saw that and were like, we can't be doing that. We have to make it shorter. We have to make it snappier.
Probably also for their competitive tournaments, it just makes sense to have a shorter match just to progress people through.
So that's the thing is like if you're going to run an event, you need it to be get in, get out. And I appreciate why they did it. I don't like it. I have never enjoyed... So I did play double battles back in the day, and I did, but it was mainly just like a gimmick, as it was always supposed to be to some degree, where I would...
It's squaring the number of variables. It's just a completely different game, isn't it? It's very hard.
And like ultimately, if you know understand the competitive metagame, you can still do well in either format, but there are nuances and specifics to them that make them quite different. There are moves that don't really get used in singles that are always used in doubles. Most of all, Protect, which is partly why I don't like doubles, is if you want to have a balanced team in doubles and you want to have something that can work across lots of different setups, almost every Pokemon has to sacrifice one of their more interesting moves for Protect. And so you're ultimately now having Pokemon with 3 moves in their moveset as opposed to 4, because everyone by default has Protect for scouting purposes, for protecting from multi-hit move purposes, lots of purposes for why you would have it, and I understand why, but I find it extremely boring as a thing that you just have to default have on a Pokemon. And that's not always the case. There's definitely doubles teams where you can mess around with it and not use Protect. There's Trick Room setups, which I found very fun. I used to use a Bronzong Shuckle Trick Room setup where Bronzong would set Trick Room, Shuckle would then use Power Trip, and it would suddenly be the fastest thing in the room and would also have the highest physical attack stat possible because Power Trip inverses your defense and your attack, so it swaps one for the other. So it's fucking insane. And also Shuckle has access to Earthquake, and Bronzong had Levitate, so I would Trick Room, Power Trip, then Earthquake the next turn, and anything on the other side of the field would get absolutely destroyed by that. So some interesting, fun setups you could do around doubles, but I ultimately treated it as like a dalliance of this is just a fun thing to mess around with. Ultimately, the game that I played was 6 versus 6 singles, which is to say the traditional way that all Pokemon games are played if you've ever played the single player, right? Like, your goal in that game is to have a team of 6, and you fight 1 versus 1 against the gym leaders, against trainers, against all manner of people. That is Pokemon at its core. And because the competitive stuff has been VGC for so long and has been based around doubles, that has been positioned as the way that you should really play this game. Now, this game offers singles and doubles. However, doubles and the 4v4 format is the one that is kind of, I would say, the default for people. The problem is, right, if you're going to do singles, it has to be 6 versus 6, and they have decided It's not. It's 3 versus 3. It is the same setup where you bring 6, but instead of choosing order of those 6, which has been the case for previous generations, you instead have to choose 3 Pokemon to take with you.
I mean, 3 versus 3 feels like some of the shorter matches in Pokemon Stadium, but even Pokemon Stadium, like the gym leaders and stuff, it was always 6. Like that was the thing.
Yeah,
like it just
exactly.
Such a shame.
It's a real shame, and you know, again, partly why they've done this is because they want matches to be quick. They want people to get in and out and not hang around for a long time. And the funny thing about 6 versus 6 is that you can build specific teams that are stall teams, for example, that could make a match go on for a very long time because they're built around defensive Pokemon and things like Toxic and Leech Seed and tactics to slowly chip away at a Pokemon's health, built around Curse or Calm Mind, like moves that will slowly build up a defensive Pokemon and allow them to, then clear through a team. It's a setup that I have very much enjoyed because the makeup of a set of 6 is always very interesting in terms of what moves do you give them? Are you countering certain things within the meta? You have options to switch. You're covering your weaknesses. And ultimately, when you have 3 Pokemon and you're choosing 3, there is so much less strategy that goes into that because you don't have options. You don't have the ability to go to something that could potentially counter a threat that exists. If you make the wrong choice at the initial stage of picking your Pokemon, it could just be over from there because you just you are at an inherent disadvantage, essentially. So I think that it's been fun jumping back into this, obviously, and I can also go into a whole fucking thing about how I got all my Pokemon through, but it has.
That's a podcast in itself. Like that is.
It is, yeah. Wild. To be honest with you, but like the thing that I want, the 6 versus 6, is currently not in the game, and I was very mad about this before the game came out, and I was like, "Fuck this! I'm not even going to play this game." And then I was like, well, I'll just try it out and see. And I have ultimately been having fun with it. I've not played doubles really at all because I'm not interested in it as a format.
Why can't they make 6v6 an option? Like they accept it's not the ideal format. They know it takes more time, but we're going to have these 3 modes. 4v4 with 2v2, 3v3, and then 6v6. Like.
Yeah, I mean, also, they could just offer 6v6 doubles as well, because that's also a legitimate format that they just don't allow. So I was watching people before launch, because I kept asking the question as well on social, be like, does anyone know, is this game going to have this, is it not going to have this? And there's lots of big Pokemon YouTubers who have built their entire careers around 6 versus 6 singles, right? Joey, Poker Aim is like one of the biggest ones. Hayden, who is still around, still playing. Like these guys, the OG Pokemon YouTubers from my era, they are the ones who never did VGC, because that wasn't the thing that we played. We played Smogon singles. And so there was a live stream that Hayden was doing on launch day, and I was watching like the moment that he realizes there's no 6v6 at all in the game, and it just like the color like drains.
He didn't know until launch day?
No, because no one knew. There was no confirmation. So the thing that people were worried about is that like private battles were in the game, and so people were like, surely in private matches you can set your own rules, right? You like in Smash Brothers you can set up matches and you're like, totally. I want to have all gravity on, all the guns dropping, and everyone starts at 300%, right? Sakurai
get Sakurai involved. He'll get the options open.
My god. A dream Pokemon game would be a Sakurai made if Sakurai made Champions, it would be the best thing ever made, I'm telling you right now. But here's the insane thing about it. You go into private matches, and the only option you can choose is the set rules of fucking 3 versus 3 or 4 versus 4 doubles. The most insane thing about it is it shows all these categories of like length of the match, 20 minutes, number of Pokemon, 3. Like it shows these things, but they're grayed out and you can't fucking change them. And I'm like, what are you doing? It's fucking madness.
Okay. Does that not give you just a glimpse of hope that like this game is going to get updates, they're going to change things? Surely this has to be on the table as an option that they're thinking about.
I think it has to be. I think the other thing that has happened in the past, I believe, and I wasn't really around for this, but I think one of the previous generations, people made a big stink about it as well, because there wasn't the timer in game was so short. It was like still a 20-minute timer for matches for 6v6 that could last longer. So they eventually, Pokemon patched in a 60-minute option for matches.
Why do you need an overall timer anyway? Surely you could just do timers per turn. You know?
I know, it's fucking ridiculous.
God,
but it's another thing. Like, basically, I'm going to be old man about this, but when it was fucking Diamond and Pearl, there was no time limit. There was no team preview even. You would have to fucking write down your opponent's teams.
I mean, an hour and a half match is not ideal, but there's a happy medium between the two.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, I like no team preview. I think it makes it more fun, and then you have to write things down and everything. But anyway, that became a standard in 5th gen. It was fine. It didn't make much of a difference. But
team preview was in Pokemon Stadium. I remember that.
Yeah, it was. But yeah, I think the handheld games took until 5th gen in order to even have that be an option. And then it was also about... I actually went back and watched my first black and white competitive against Nick, which was I started it off and I only picked one of the Pokemon, and because I didn't realize you had to pick all of them to go in. I just thought you picked your lead because the idea was, who's going to go out first, essentially, based on your opponent's team, and that was very funny because there was like some live recording of me being like, oh shit, I only picked one of them. But yeah. Anyway, 6v6. I do think your point is valid in terms of part of the sell of this game is that it will be updated over time, and the sell of this game is it's going to be the format going forward for all of Nintendo's own competitive stuff, right? So they are going to have to add more Pokemon to it inevitably. That's another thing that's a drawback because there's only about 200 total right now. So they're going to add more of those. They're going to add more like rule sets, I think. So like Dynamaxing and all this stuff will come in at some point in time. At the moment, it's Mega Evolution is the core kind of like gimmick that they're running with. So all this stuff is true. It will get updated. The question is, are they actually going to give us more freedom in terms of what we choose? And I do think there is some hope. I think one of the other things is that the launch has been so bad and that they have been castigated on social for it constantly. And there are a lot of people who are atting them in this community being like, weird, there's no 6 versus 6 singles, which is like the standard for any Pokemon game. So a lot of people, they are going to get the message. The question is, do they respond to that?
It's the standard in the anime. Like, it's the standard. Yes. It's not just this competitive thing. Like, that 6v6 has been the standard for a long time. The reason that Smogon 6v6 exists is because it draws on the base format of the games, right? It's not like it comes out of nowhere. Yeah, like, you get your 6 Pokemon healed at the Pokemon Center. 6. It's always been 6. That's the number.
It's always 6. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. It's bad.
I have a question. Does all the competitive rules in terms of attacks that are and aren't allowed and this kind of thing, are those all included? Like, or is it just a completely different meta that they've gone for?
So it's all really complicated because there's lots of stuff. Like, so in 5th generation, for example, they introduced this stuff called the Dream World, and they had Dream World abilities. And so certain Pokemon had special Dream World abilities, but there were also egg moves, and so there were certain combinations of Dream World ability and egg move that didn't exist, but that you could force to happen through like certain events. But then when you transferred them to another game, it wouldn't be functional anymore going forwards. So there are certain Pokemon that have a certain ability, and then you're not allowed to use that move. So, for example, I brought a Gliscor from Gen 6 into Pokemon Champions, and it said, you can't use Roost. Roost is not allowed on this moveset with this Pokemon. And I was like, that's odd. I don't know why that's the case. There must be some good reason for it, but...
So Roost is allowed in other Pokemon, but just not with Gliscor because it's some unique either egg breeding or something thing.
Yeah, it might be Poison Heal Gliscor can't get Roost anymore in current generations when it used to be able to, or something weird like that.
Right.
But in any case, it doesn't delete the move. It just has like a red like band sign around the Pokemon, and it has it around the move.
So he's now got three moves instead of 4.
Well, no, it still says Roost there, so it doesn't delete it automatically.
Okay.
But basically means I can't put him in a team. It will not let me like fight with him, essentially.
Okay, yeah.
Until I change Roost to something else.
Right.
Now, the thing with Champions is quite nice is that it doesn't change the actual Pokemon. You just edit them for their time in Champions, and when you return them back to Pokemon Home, then they'll go back to what they were before. So
I mean, that's pretty cool that you can edit movesets at all, right? Like this, on the bright side, this game sounds pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is really crazy that you're able to click on a Pokemon, So this is why I had a fortress in there, and the fortress was a Spikes fortress, which is really good for 6v6 singles because you can have a lot more switch-ins, and the opponent is going to take more chip damage the more Pokemon that are switching in, and you can combine that with like a Roaring Suicune and like do some phasing shenanigans. Spikes is almost pointless in 3v3 because you just don't have that many switch-ins, right? Yeah. So it's not effective. So I was like, all right, I'll just give him rocks instead. So I went and changed it to Stealth Rocks, and so here's the kind of free-to-play side of it. There is a currency in this game called VP. Now, VP, you would think, is a thing that they would want to make people pay money for, but that isn't necessarily the case. VP is basically victory points. You get them from winning matches or from even participating in matches. You get more for winning, you get less for losing, basically. And then you get them for doing like daily challenges. It's like, when you log into Overwatch and it's like, do 3 dailies and you get your Battle Pass experience. It's the same here where you do your 3 dailies and you get some VP, essentially. Mm-hmm. And that VP can be spent to do things like changing your Pokemon's moves, changing their nature, their ability, changing what their stat distribution is. And so it costs different amount of VP for all these different various elements. And so you will then, so when I change Fortress from Spikes to Stealth Rock, I think it cost me 250 VP. I'm pretty sure it's like 250 for a move and 500 for like an ability. You get a lot of VP very early. I have over 25,000, I think, at this point in time. So it's very easy for me to like swap stuff in and out. But also, because I already have Pokemon from Pokemon X and Y that I've transferred over, I don't really need to like do that much changing of Pokemon because I have like a lot of the ones I want. I think the new ones that I don't have, you can recruit them. That also can cost VP. So it's almost like a gacha pull where every day you get a free set of Pokemon will appear. And you can spend like a currency to get more per day. And you get a lot of those currencies as well. So honestly, in terms of free-to-play stuff, I don't think it's very punishing. The most punishing it is the box limit, where currently I think 35 is my maximum number of Pokemon I can have. And if you've ever played competitive Pokemon, that's nowhere near enough, right? Like, I've imported like 3 different Tyrannitars, for God's sake. Like, I'm not even having different Pokemon. I'm having like 3 different variants of the same one, because one is a Sub-Punch Boa variant, one is a physical like Choice Banner variant. Also, there's no... Okay, we can get into items as well. There's so much fucking shit to talk about with this game, especially when you're someone like me who understands the depth of it and has lots of elements to talk about.
But by and large, the illegal egg moves, there is a constrained number of moves that are legal that works with the meta. It's not like their meta is completely different to the pre-existing meta.
Yeah, I don't know, to be honest with you, is the answer. Okay. Like, I'm not sure what the decision...
Like, I've heard Incineroar is a popular Pokemon. Like, it's very...
I mean, yeah, apparently Incineroar has been, like, the meta for years and is, like, very, very good. But I think that's based on doubles versus singles. I'm not sure how good... Incineroar might be UU in singles for all we know, Again, sorry, I'm using these terminologies like people know what I'm talking about.
Are these terms used now at all?
Yes, everyone uses them.
They are still used, okay.
But I think that if you are new to the scene, there's a lot of jargon and lingo that you just don't understand.
God,
so
all the memory banks in my head are just like...
I know, they're probably triggering because yes, Bally and I both did this. I was obviously in far deeper than he was, but Bally has all the knowledge for this stuff, so you can easily...
Yeah. I had my Sandstorm team.
Yeah, but the thing is, Bally, you could easily go into this game and feel quite good about yourself because your base knowledge and understanding is enough to beat a lot of people quite easily because people don't have the understanding yet. Obviously, the internet is a place where you can learn all that and get good quite quickly these days. But
I've got to get Bally Jr. into this. He's going to get into the
meta. Yeah, exactly.
Take us down.
He'll take over. Anyway, sorry, I'll going all over the place here, but I'm going to go back to the getting Pokemon side of it, which is a recruiting thing. So it's like a gacha pull. Every day you get one, and they give you a selection of about 10 Pokemon. I think it's quite generous. So you can choose out of those 10 one to take into your boxes, and so you can either rent it, which is free, and so that means you only have it for a week. So it will stay in your box for a week, and then after a week it will disappear essentially. Or
it's a real shame the one you get in gacha you don't even get to keep.
Well, so you can. So it's an either-or situation. Okay, so if you don't have the currency, you can rent it for a week, or you can spend VP, 2,500 in this case, to permanently add it to your boxes, basically. Right. So the VP is used in multiple things. It's used for recruiting Pokemon. It's also used for changing their moves and abilities and everything. And then there's also teammate tickets, which are basically a one-time use ticket that just lets you take someone for free, essentially.
And you can earn VP through the game, not just paying money.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, I don't believe there's a way to pay to get VP.
It's
okay. The things that you're paying for are cosmetic things. You're also paying for box space, which I think is a little shitty, but to get more slots in your boxes. Yeah. So you can increase your number of box slots. It's about like increasing your level within the ranked mode. So as you go through ranked, you unlock more box space essentially, but it's not that much. And being the person that I am and the number of Pokemon I have access to, it's not really enough for me. 35 is nowhere close to enough. I went back to my Pokemon X and Y and I was like, how many Pokemon did I actually have in this? I was like, I didn't play that much 6th gen. I had 6 full boxes and there's 30 per box, Bally. So like, that's like a lot of fucking Pokemon, basically. And the majority of them I can't actually use yet because they are banned within Champions. They don't exist within Champions. So when you go to Pokemon Home and try and transfer them over, it doesn't let you. Even some Pokemon, this is really odd. Sometimes I tried to bring something in. I think it was Politoed. Politoed had Drizzle, right? Which another Dreamworld ability, which I think this is probably kind of the issue. And it wouldn't let me bring Politoed with Drizzle into Pokemon Champions. So I wonder if that's like a problem that had to be solved somehow, and they weren't able to allow you to.
Or maybe it's like slightly future proofing for the next gen or something. Like you will not be able to get a Politoed with Drizzle in that game. Therefore, they want to just wipe it off their existence.
I think next gen is an interesting discussion because ultimately next gen can be anything now. Because the competitive is now constrained to this game, I think it frees them to actually be like, you know what, Gen 10 of Pokemon, it's going to be an action game, and you're not even going to do turn-based battles. I think that's part of the sell of Champions, is it actually frees them up to not have to worry about the competitive people anymore.
Wow.
Because that's not where they are going to.
You think Gen 10 could be more action-based? Wow.
Not necessarily. I'm just using it as an example to be like, they're no longer constrained. The reason Pokemon has always been so consistently the same thing and the way that the battles work is because they have to support a meta that has existed for years and years and is built on the same fundamentals of abilities and natures and all these things. Otherwise, like, it breaks their entire VGC ecosystem. So by doing Champions and breaking the traditional turn-based Pokemon out into its own thing, they ultimately now have a avenue to go wild with the main games and do something totally different. Obviously, they're experimenting with the Legends format, but Gen 10 could be something totally new, if they wanted it to be.
I thought they would see Gen 10 as an opportunity to introduce new Pokemon that would then be played through Pokemon Champions.
That's certainly true, and they certainly can do that as well, and I think more likely than not, that will be the case, because ultimately, mainline Pokemon, part of its sell is that it is the same thing every time, and that's kind of what they like and what they want it to be. I just think that by doing this, they at least give themselves the opportunity to try and be a bit more innovative in that space. And so
I just think maybe they'd save that for Legends, but like that's where they
more and they have been, right? Legends has been definitely different, but I think that's an interesting thing that we'll see when Wind and Waves comes out next year, and how that kind of ties into things. But you know what? We haven't even talked about the actual game.
Have you had fun?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, I have. So I have a few different teams that I've been throwing around. Ultimately, like the pick 3 thing is a little stupid because I just tend to go with the same ones every time, just based on like the balance between them and how they work with the Pokemon I'm usually up against. I sometimes swap a couple in and out, but for the most part, it's pretty consistent. So I've been using stuff that is pretty bread and butter. Stuff that honestly has been around since 4th gen and it's still fucking good. I was on Blue Sky and I was like, Scarf Gengar has aged like a fine wine. And the truth is, it's because it's still as good today as it was back then, Like, a Pokemon like Gengar with its speed stat, its ability to outspeed most things. Also, I should mention, the only choice item in the game right now is Choice Scarf. There's no band, there's no specs. Life Orb is not in there. They don't have Eviolite, and you can't even use Eviolite anyway because there are no only final evolutions are in the game, so Eviolite isn't even viable. There's a lot of core fundamental items that are not in here, but guess what they did put in there, Bally? Fucking Quick Claw, an item that was banned like in the O&M forums, a hacks-inducing item that randomly lets you go first. So that's
why I was interested. Yeah, but that it sounds like that's Quick Call has been legal since we were in, or at least I was into.
I guess so.
Maybe.
I mean, it's not a very reliable item, so I guess that's why.
Okay.
But I put it on my T-Tar, and sometimes it's won me matches because it's just activated when I should have been slower.
And in terms of like lack of choice items, my understanding was that choice items kind of make more sense in a 6v6 because you're switching out more, whereas in a 3v3, yeah. I'm surprised Scarf Gengar are so effective in a 3v3 just because you're obviously locked in.
Yeah, and so part of the reason for that is because I'm pairing it with Rotom. Rotom Wash, one of the all-time best Pokemon, ultimately. After it changed its typing to Water Electric from, I believe, Ghost Electric, because when it was first introduced, the typing differences were not fully functional, and then in Gen 5s when Rotom Wash really became a beast, because the Water Electric typing with Levitate is like fucking fantastic. You have so many resistances and you don't die that easily. You can be very bulky. It's an interesting spread where you have like a lot of defensive investment, but then there's I think you have a special defensive nature. I can't remember. Anyway, it's a Rotom from my box from X and Y, so I would have done that EV spread ages ago and made it what I wanted it to be. But Rotom just doesn't really die in one hit. It can take punches. It has leftovers to like sustain itself. But ultimately, the most important thing of your question of choice items, Volt Switch. Any U-turn, Volt Switch, there's a lot more of these now. There's one called Flip Turn, which one of like the Dolphin Pokemon uses, and Parting Shot, which Incineroar, which we were talking about, also uses. There's a lot more initiative moves, turn initiative, which means that you can Volt Switch into a Scarf Gengar, which you then threaten with, essentially. So there's stuff like that. So having the ability to have U-turn and Volt Switch within a 3v3 scenario still gives me a bit of opportunity with Scarf Gengar.
So you're switching and then attacking in the same turn. Is that what that move does?
No. But it's the case of like, I couldn't hard switch into Gengar on a move, but I can have Rotom take a hit, be slower, Volt Switch into Gengar. Exactly. And then Gengar is faster with the Scarf, which then threatens a switch of their own. So those types of things, essentially. So that's why I think basically most matches I'm using Rotom and Scarf Gengar, and then I'm swapping between T-Tar and Conkeldurr. And Conkeldurr is really good because he has priority as well. So he has Mach Punch priority, which is super nice, as well as Drain Punch, which is self-sustaining. I give him a Citrus Berry, which, because I don't have a second leftovers, there's only one leftovers, so Rotom has it. But, I could have actually gone more offensive. I could have, actually, no, I can't because it doesn't exist in the game. I was going to say, Flame Orb was a good option for Conkeldurr because he has Guts, and Guts obviously gives you a big physical attack boost when you have that equipped. So, yeah, so I've been using those and generally climbing up the ladder. I'm not that high yet. I'm almost at Ultra Ball, I think, and I think Master Ball is the highest, maybe.
That's pretty
so
good.
I've gone through Pokeball and Great Ball. Yeah, it's interesting because with 3v3, there's definitely matches where you just will lose because of choices and typing and certain things. And there's also matches I'm losing because there's Pokemon popping up that I've never seen before, and so I'm learning what they are in the moment, and I'm like, oh, it does that. So like Mega Lopunny is a great example because Lopunny came in and I was like, okay, it's probably gonna go Mega and then it's probably gonna use Close Combat on me. I was like, all right, I'll just switch into Gengar then because I'll just avoid it. The Lopunny does use Close Combat, but I didn't realize that Mega Lopunny has Scrappy, which means it can hit Ghost types with normal moves and fighting moves. And so it just killed my Gengar, and that's why I lost that match, essentially. If I had known, Scrappy, if I had that knowledge that it had Scrappy, then I would be fine. Kangaskhan was the only thing that really used Scrappy back in our day.
But you're gonna get used to that, and now Lopunny has Scrappy, and like
right. So I won't be stupid and switch to Gengar next time.
I think this is the ultimate reason that you've gelled with competitive Pokemon so much, is that so much of it is about the knowledge, and by having the knowledge, you know what the options are for your opponent, and just gives you the upper hand, and that's what
exactly
part of the big part of the game. But
it's very fun, and I think it's the level that I'm playing at right now, you can make predictions super easily because people are just not thinking that way about it, and I have a level of thinking that is above most players in the Pokeball and Great Ball kind of like sphere. You can be caught out by that if you try and be a bit too clever, because some people are just really bad and they don't know what they're doing, and so they're just going to make moves that you're
that's like playing poker against a noob. It's actually quite hard because you don't know what they're going to do. Right,
but like if I come in with a Rotom versus a Gyarados, I know that Gyarados is going to switch. So instead of Volt switching, I'm going to Will-O-Wisp the switch in and get a burn, Like, there are things like that just, you have this inherent understanding of how it works and how it functions. So it's very, very satisfying. And yeah, I have been having a good time despite it not really being the exact setup that I want it to be. I will say, of the matches being 3v3, it means that you're getting through quite a lot quite quickly, and so you're getting a lot of VP relatively fast. And if you lose, it doesn't matter too much, because then you'll win again and you'll kind of go back. So I've been going up and down a little bit of like lose, win type of thing. But I think it's snappy enough that it doesn't matter too much.
You're playing on Switch 2, not mobile.
Correct. So there is no Switch 2 version.
So
it's a Switch 1 game without a Switch 2 thing necessarily. So I think it has a boost mode, but it doesn't look like as good as it could do. It runs at 30 frames per second as well, by the way, which is insane. But mobile's not out yet. I believe mobile is coming in a couple of months' time. This game does reek of having been pushed out the door too hot, essentially. Yeah. And I think part of that is to time with the VGC, because they're swapping over to it soon, and that's happening around the summertime, so they want people to get used to it before they then ultimately switched into that format.
Also gives them a year ahead of Gen 10 if they want to tie it in, that it'll already be rolled out and can get the quirks out.
Exactly, yeah. So I think that's definitely something that has been unfortunate. There's been loads of bugs, there's tons of stuff I've seen online of someone activates a focus sash on the enemy and it says that your Pokemon had a focus sash activate even when they didn't have one. There's been stuff like Leech Seed not taking the right amount of health away. Also, there's a bunch of changes which I think are quite good changes ultimately. So the changes to the way sleep works. Ultimately, Freeze used to be if you got frozen in a match, it was basically that Pokemon is fucked, because Freeze was infinite. It was I believe 20% chance to defrost, and that was every turn it was 20%, and there was no changes. So Freeze could really fuck you up back in the day. It's the worst possible status to get. Freeze now guarantees thawing within 3 turns, which is amazing, and they also increased it to 25% chance to break out of Freeze. So even better. Sleep now has a 3-turn maximum as well, and there's a chance that you wake on the 2nd turn, which is pretty crazy. And then Paralysis now has instead of a 1 in 4 chance to get paralyzed, it's now 1 in 8. So paralysis is now nowhere near as bad. That's a huge benefit.
But still slows down your Pokemon, I imagine. But
Exactly, and ultimately I think that's smart, because Thunder Wave was always there for speed advantage. Same the way that Burn was used to reduce attack, right? Yeah. So I think Burn is the one that's staying the most similar, because it just cuts your attack stat in half essentially, or it's 50% damage reduction. So Burn is still great, still works well. I believe they changed the amount that Burn does, because I've seen Leftovers bring back the same percentage as Burn takes away. So Burn and Leftovers are the same percentage. And then there's some other stuff as well in terms of the amount of damage certain things do over time. Anyway, I hope any of this is interesting to anybody, because if you don't understand competitive Pokemon, it could sound like a lot of nonsense. But I think ultimately, with this game existing, it means that more people are going to understand the nonsense and hopefully enjoy the nonsense and have a good time with it, because it is such an interesting game. I posted on Blue Sky a sequence of events that happened, which was just very funny, because I had a Gengar against a Dragonite, and I wanted to switch out because I was locked into a move that I didn't want to be using. I accidentally hit the attack button, and so basically I killed a Gengar with Shadow Ball, and another Gengar. So Gengar doesn't actually have Levitate, I think, in Pokemon Champions. It has another ability called Curse Body. Curse Body disables a move when you use it on the Pokemon, and so if you kill them with it, I think. So I killed their Gengar with Shadow Ball, which then cursed bodied my Shadow Ball, disabling it. Because I'm Scarf Gengar, I'm locked into Shadow Ball, so I can't actually do anything. So I would want to switch out. I accidentally hit the attack button on Dragonite that came in, and I was like, fuck. So I used Struggle, ultimately. So I struggled and did a tiny bit of damage, and then the Dragonite was able to kill me. However, this is very important, because Struggle ultimately did enough damage to break Multiscale, which is Dragonite's ability that reduces the amount of damage you do if it's at full health. So it wasn't affected by that. And it used Outrage on Gengar, and so it was locked in to Outrage, and then my Cursed Body activated on the Dragonite, so now he was fucked because Outrage wasn't going to work, basically, because I disabled it. So then I was easily able to bring in my Conkeldurr that had Ice Punch, not have to worry about multi-scale, and not have to worry because he was locked into Outrage, and not die from it, essentially. Which I think, to be honest, I don't think that would have happened aside from a crit, because Dragonite didn't have access to Choice Band.
Would a multi-scale have saved the Dragonite with it from an Ice Punch?
So I think only in the sense that if he was banded, he probably would have been able to kill me. But again, there's no Choice Band in the game currently. I think the funny thing about it is, yes, then I was able to just clean Ice Punch him, and I think Outrage just didn't do anything. It was like Dragonite just can't attack, essentially, was the thing. So yeah, that was very funny. It was like curse body. Like we both got fucked by it, but like in a way that ended up working out for me in the end, which I just thought was very cool. So like moments like that, like just remind me how fucking cool this game can be. Like the sandbox for things to happen that you don't expect, and like for you to like strategize around what you're going to do and how you're going to plan things out. Like there is so much thought that goes into every turn of what is possible. And it's so much more with 6v6 of that type of thing, because the possibilities are much bigger. So 3v3 has been very fun. I do hope they add 6v6, and I will not be giving them any money until they do. I've decided I probably would want to get the more box space, because I just want to have everything in there. And like, I just want to have access to loads more so that I can swap teams on the fly and have access to like more slots and all this sort of stuff. I will do that at some point, but I think they have to fix this game first, and yeah, actually give us what we want, which is Smogon 6v6 singles, please and thank you.
Sounds like you're pretty keen on like the dailies in the meantime. Is that you getting that?
I'm playing. Yeah, I'm playing every day.
Oh, nice.
I mean, this week I haven't been because I've been very busy at work, as I mentioned. But I am going in and doing like 2-3 matches and trying to rank up, and then, you know, like swapping teams sometimes, and trying to change stuff up, and trying to recruit some stuff.
Should I give it a try?
I think you should.
I mean, I would obviously go with all the rentals and do all that stuff. I wouldn't.
Yeah, because the last competitive Pokemon you had would have been in Pearl. And if you want to get Pokemon from Pearl to Champions, my God, Bally, do you have a journey to go through? I don't want to. Because you would have to. So you would have to take Pokemon from Pearl and put them through the 5th gen transportation method, get them into 5th gen. Then 5th gen, you'd have to go through the 6th gen transportation method to get them to 6th gen. 6th gen. So this is my story of how I did it, because I went from 6th gen. I didn't remember. I went on the eShop, Bally, and I searched for Pokemon Home, and I was like, fuck. There's no Pokemon Home. Have I missed it? Because the 3DS eShop, as we all know, shut down now, essentially. You can't actually open it up and re-download software. But I was looking, I was like, I don't have Pokemon Home in my software to re-download. What the fuck? I've forgotten that before Pokemon Home, there was Pokemon Bank, which was a free service that wasn't paid for, that you could use to transfer your Pokemon to there and then to other games.
Was it seriously free? I could have sworn it was paid for.
Yes,
really?
It was free because I just used it last weekend to transfer everything. I didn't have to pay anything to use Pokemon Bank.
Did it used to be paid for?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
So I was able to just like put stuff on there. And so basically what I had to do was go into my cartridge of Pokemon X and transfer everything into Pokemon Bank. And then Pokemon Bank has a one-time transfer to Home. You can't go backwards into Bank again.
Right, okay.
So I was basically like, take all the Pokemon I possibly have in Pokemon Bank, put them into Pokemon Home, and then from Pokemon Home, you can then transfer them to Champions, basically. So I spent like a good 2-3 hours on Saturday last week just getting everything over, essentially. But once I'd done that, I now have super easy access to anything I want. And every time they add new Pokemon to the game, I can just pop into Home and be like, oh, I've got a thing now. I can, now they've added fucking, I don't know, Shuckle to the game, so now I can use that. And yeah.
Shuckle's not in the game yet.
No, so Five Guys and a Gigalith, which is one of my famous teams, only 2 of them are in Pokemon Champions. So Azumarill and Arcanine.
You need a new name for Five Guys and a Gigalith. Is like 2 something and a something. With the
yeah, exactly. Well, no, actually, I was using a Whimsicott. So I was actually using, this is the other team I've been using, which is lead Whimsicott with Arcanine and Azumarill. So basically, Whimsicott is great as a like utility Pokemon where I can on-call Pokemon into stupid moves they don't want to do. I can what's the other thing? That I can Tailwind to set up like speed behind my Pokemon as well, which is usually used in doubles, but I can use that in singles as well. And then there's another one that I can't remember. But anyway, it has a lot of functionality. It has U-turn as well, so I can also like have switch advantage. So I would use Encore with Whimsicott to lock something into something. Then I could bring in either Azumarill or Arcanine, and both of them have priority. Five Guys and a Gigalith was a team built around priority, essentially. And so priority is super useful in 3v3. So I've been doing quite well with that team as well. That kind of three.
Can Arcanine get like Dragon Dance or something wild? I remember back.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
I didn't ever use it as Dragon Dance. But also, unfortunately, both Azumarill and Arcanine are not in their perfect form because Choice Band and Life Orb are not there, and those are the items I had. So I think Arcanine has Shell Bell, which is weird, which is quite good because Flare Blitz does recoil to you, but then if you do enough damage, Shell Bell will heal it back up, so it's actually a nice like counterbalance there. But yeah, Arcanine also has Intimidate, so I can do a little bit of Intimidate juggling, which is a practice that a few people invented, which was taking multiple Pokemon with Intimidate and like switching between them. So people used to do this with Gyarados and with Salamence. You'd have Gyarados and Salamence in 4th gen, and you'd essentially, it was called Intimidate juggling, which was a way of like reducing the attack stat of a Pokemon. Because when you switch in, it automatically drops their attack stat. So if someone was trying to set up...
But then you give away that your Salamence doesn't have Levitate.
Yeah, of course, Levitate on Salamence. It's a flying type, by the way.
Oh, it's a flying type. There was something... I'm getting confused.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. But all this knowledge is like just coming from the back of your brain, so I appreciate it's been crusty there for a long time. But yes, so there's so many things. Yeah, also like all these phrases just come back to mind, like Intimidate juggling. You know, like it's just like it's very, very funny to be like back in it in this way.
It's very fun to listen to like kind of funny kind of, because Tim is like the Pokemon guy, but he has little to zero to do with anything competitive, whereas Blessing is like trying to learn a little bit here and there and try to go up in the ranks and stuff. So it's interesting hearing podcasters dip their toe in.
It is very interesting. And I think it's interesting because I think like they're all playing doubles, right? And this is the one thing that has frustrated me a little bit listening to people talk about it who don't really know what they're talking about because they are all like, well, yeah, the reason they do doubles is because it's more complex, right? It's just more, there's more things that can happen. And while there is a truth to that, the idea that doubles is more complicated and therefore more in depth than singles is just a complete fallacy because it's not. That they don't understand the depth that singles has, essentially. And I think there's a surface level understanding of the Pokemon competitive scene that says, oh, the reason they do doubles is because it's more complex, and that is not true. And even VGC players will tell you this. That is not how it works. It's just a different approach, and it's a different way of playing. I would argue personally that singles actually has more complexity than doubles because of the build variety you can have and the way in which you're not so restricted by specific moves within the meta, where doubles has things that Earthquake, everybody will Surf, use. Or Protect, right? Protect is like everywhere. Tailwind is also very, very consistent. So in doubles especially, there is no hazard play because it ends so quickly. Hazards are almost not a factor in the meta. So like Stealth Rock you could use, but like, is it really going to make a difference? Not necessarily. So I think that's another like part of it where I think there's fewer overall strategies in doubles because of some of the restrictions that it places. So, again, I'm always going to argue in favor of singles because that's what I grew up on, what I know, and what I think is the most interesting and fun way to play the game. But doubles is still really good, and I think there's some really cool stuff. I will probably make a doubles team at some point. I'll probably try and recreate that Trick Room team because I had a good fun doing that.
But you need Shuckle for that, right?
I need Shuckle, I need Bronzong, and I need
was
some
so
other stuff.
Back in the day.
Yeah. Also, I would like to do some more rain stuff, but Kingdra is not available currently, so like Swift Swim Kingdra would be really nice to try out.
Bronzong got Rain Dance.
Yeah, Bronzong did. I think that's what it was. I actually also had it was a Rain Dance Trick Room. So like when Bronzong died, I would bring Kingdra in for when Trick Room was over. So it was like yes, it was Damp Rock as well, and that's not in the game either. There's so few items in the game, like Damp Rock or even like other items like Light Clay for like Deoxys Speed dual screen setups where you would have Reflect and Light Screen as a lead Deoxys Speed, and Light Clay would mean it would last for 8 turns. Like that would be an incredible 3v3 setup because it means that you essentially have like for the entirety of the match like a reduced physical and special or increased defenses on physical and special from both of those. But light clay is not in the game, so screens do not last very long and will disappear very quickly. So all those items that just make so many strategies viable are not currently here. So I think the nice thing about it, because it is a free-to-play game, because it's going to be built over time, they want to pace some of this content out, and so inevitably they'll be like, oh, now this season Choice Band is back, and it's like, okay, right, now everyone's going to be suddenly using Azumarill and not just me, because that was obviously a very, very good set. It's been great. I've been enjoying it. It's fucked up in all sorts of ways, and it has so many problems, but the fact that it exists is very good, and I'm glad that it does, and hopefully in the future it will get much better.
When we started this podcast and, we were doing something that was to the side of everything you were doing to do with Pokemon, a lot of listeners at the time, especially for those first 20 to 30 episodes maybe, saying, MBZ, you need to talk about Pokemon more. You need to talk more about the competitive game. Well, if you waited until episode 320, here you go. We've had an hour of MBZ talking about competitive Pokemon. So there you go.
There you
happened.
Go. There it is.
You don't have to wait a decade.
It did happen. Yeah.
More than a decade, but yeah.
Yeah, just about. Great. Bally, do you want to talk a little bit more Pokemon, and then we can get to emails?
There's some more Pokemon. If you didn't have enough Pokemon, here's some more chilled, laid back, noob-friendly Pokemon, perhaps, like this. I finished up Pokopia, or Pokemon Pokopia, it's officially called. This is just the game I wanted. This is what the reviewers said it was all about. It is chill. It's relaxing. I'm more or less mainlined the game to an extent, but...
Yeah, I was going to ask, it seems the type of person you are and the type of games you play as well, you're not going to get locked into something for hundreds of hours that you don't need to be.
Unless it's
if you
Overwatch.
Don't have to be. Yeah, of course, yes.
But no, I agree, and there are exceptions, but it's the mainline stuff, it's the story stuff that is structured and has missions, and you do go and collect the things and bring them to the thing and do the thing, and all the optional stuff, to my knowledge, is more or less decoration. Like, it's just, collect that thing to build this, and then so there's all this extra stuff you can do, which is nice, but it's not like part of the main story. Like, where did all the humans go? What's going on? So even though I mainly mainlined it still took me 30 to 35 hours, and I will say that there's still you still need to utilize all the game's mechanisms to quite a high degree just to see credits, I would argue. Like, for example, there's a lot of resources you get through. One thing that games like this do, to my knowledge, is, if there's a finite number of resources within the world, we need to take you to alternate worlds where there's infinite resources to bring them back to the world, if that makes sense. So that's what you have with like these dreamlands, or you basically take a doll of a Pokemon to a Drifloon or a Drifblim, and they say, do you want to go to the Dreamland? And you can only do it once a day. Do you want to go to the Dreamland today? It's like, yes, please. It's like, you've brought your Arcanine doll. We'll go to this specific island. And then, turns out on Arcanine's island, there's a lot of gold ore and stuff. It's all specific items.
Interesting.
So later in the game, you need your gold ore, you need your cement, you need to be able to make glass. There's all these different things you need to make the structures in that area and progress this main story. So there's a lot to do. And
did you spend any time really on the decorating of making things look good, or did you kind of do the minimal amount possible just to get through the mission or the thing that you were being tasked with?
I made the spaces I was going to frequently more nicer. I knew that right, this is the final area of the game. I've got a lot of stuff to do in this area. I'm going to make the nicest looking area where I'm going to keep all of my boxes, my storage boxes, because one thing about this game is you cannot get rid of any items. There's no trash button. Apparently you can go across, you can make a bridge with abyss below you and throw items off into the abyss, and that's one of the ways to get rid of items in this game, because there's no official way to do it. So you end up, one downside I would argue of the game is when you go from area to area, you're leaving your items behind in the previous areas unless you manually bring them. So I would I'm going to plant like my stake stand in the new area, and I'm going to lay out my boxes, and then I bring my stuff through. And then in the final area, I made sure that right, I'm making this little nook, and then the storage boxes are like built into the wall, so it like looks really neat. And I like made it all, and the flooring was all neat, and I dug out all the flooring and made it this color, and then I linked that to the way the rest of it linked to the rest of the town, and it just looked really neat. So I wouldn't say went full on into decoration, but I did lots of town renovation in terms like making it look neat and the way I wanted it to look, kind of to explore and move around. But I only scratched the surface on that kind of stuff. You can go so much deeper in terms of customization and design and all these things. I just kind of wanted to fix up the town because every location you visit is incredibly broken. So and like decrepit and stuff you need to fix. So you can just exist in it in that way, but it genuinely doesn't feel nice. Like you want to water it and make sure all the pavement on the street looks like nice, and you got the lamppost, and there's so much you can do just to make the environment you're sort of habitating be nicer to be in. And you have to just accept that there'll be some people that will clean up the town a bit like I've done and think, oh, that's nice, we'll stick to that, that's what I did. But then there's others who will see that the wasteland beyond that town is there's just so much going on that like there's probably people who are just like, I can't have that wasteland look like that. And that I have heard about people
I need to make an entire city from this thing.
They go absolutely mad for the first area and then realize there's like 4 areas in the game, and it just takes absolutely ages. But playing at the pace I was playing and the goals I had, I never got tired of the loop. If I'd gone that hard and then realized there were 3 more areas, I might get a little bit frustrated. But like I said, there's quite a lot of tick box stuff you need to do near the end of the game, maximizing the systems to see the credits. But I think all that stuff's worth doing. I think the credits are very nice, and I think the story plays out nicely. Like it forces you to use the game's systems, which I appreciate with any mainline story. And
I have heard some things about the ending that, not things about it, but people's reaction to the ending. Would you echo those sentiments from people being very, happy with how like the narrative stuff works in this game?
Were people happy or unhappy, do you mean? Were they...
No, I mean, like, Greg Miller talked about crying at the end of this video game.
Oh, right.
What the hell's going on?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's pretty emotional. And depending on what you do and how you play it, it can be more emotional than not. I don't know how to explain that, but like I was very satisfied with the ending. It's cute. I think this game is unbelievably nostalgic. Like if you're a Gen 1er like us, like the musical remixes in this game are phenomenal. Like they are remixing the music from Gen 1. And on top of that, there's a bunch of CDs that like you can discover in this game, and CD players, and you meet a Rotom that you can play CDs through him as well. And there's CDs from all the different generations, not just first gen, which I think are really good. But aside to that, the actual music in this game is absolutely phenomenal. In the same way that kind of people celebrated the soundtrack of Mario Kart World last year, I think if you're into Pokemon music, especially Gen 1, this game is phenomenal. Like I think they've done an incredible job. Even someone like me who's I've been a fairly deep Pokemon fan over the years at different points, but like I can't remember a lot of that music off the top of my head. But then playing this game, it's like, man, this is not a podcasting game. This is like, I want to listen to this music. It's really really good. And yeah, I think that it's the beat to beat of what the game does, I would argue, doesn't really change a ton, but there's definitely some later game abilities that I think are really worth getting to. Like I was very pleasantly surprised that my favorite Pokemon Dragonite has quite a special role in this game. I don't want to fully give it away, but would definitely recommend getting to him. And yeah, this game really just did everything I really wanted it to do. And I can totally see that there's like another area you can go to and do an infinite amount of stuff. I think in the end I maybe found about 110 Pokemon, which I think is roughly about a third of the Pokemon in this game.
Oh really? So like, I didn't know there was like 300.
Yeah, if you want to go for it and really go for getting all those habitats and attracting all the Pokemon, you can totally do that. And
man, this game's gonna get either they'll just do a sequel, or they will do a DLC where they add more Pokemon, a new area and stuff like that. I think that is inevitable, right?
Given I'd be interested.
There's so many more that they could add.
Yeah, I'd be interested how they change the format, because I'm not really up for playing another one of these anytime soon. So I kind of need that format to be something a bit different to get me back in. And I don't know how many of people who bought this game would have similar feelings to me, to be honest.
I don't think they would. I think they're all very different in terms of the way that people talk about this game is it's a life game. It's like a Animal Crossing. Like the reason people like this game is because they have those kind of like simulation / like Minecraft brains where they just want to like play this game forever and ever and not like play anything else. I think it's that type of experience, and I do think that you will have a lot of Pokopia in your future just because the way kids play these games is so different from the way that, you know, we do, because we've grown up with different types of games, and inevitably I think that, you know, your sons are going to start playing Pokopia and building things forever and ever. And eventually you're going to be like, right, I'm going to co-op with you and just jump into your island and help you build stuff. And I think Patrick Klepek's talked about this in a really interesting way where he doesn't have like the creative brain to like go make stuff. And so
I'm fairly similar to Patrick on that front.
Yeah. And so like his daughter like would tell him what to do, and he would like be like, oh, this is my goal. My daughter's telling me what to build and I'm just building it. So he gets satisfied by having a task to do, and his kid is like the one being creative and like making stuff.
Yeah, and I totally think Bally Jr. This will be a great game for Bally Jr. at some point. Will it be his first Pokemon game? I don't know. I have talked about Pokemon being this thing with him, and he's actually getting quite into Pokemon. We've watched a little bit of the anime. He's watched one of the films. He's got some Crocs with Pokemon on them. He's got a T-shirt. Like, he's getting into the I am into Pokemon. I want to be into Pokemon. I've explained to him like there are video games about Pokemon. He's seen me play a bit of Pokopia. And I've just explained, you just need to be a bit older. There's a bit of reading. It's a bit slow paced. Yeah. Like, you need to be more open to...
I mean, we were what, like 8 years old when Gen 1 came out? Something like that?
Yeah, roughly. So, like, I think you need a bit more time for him to get into it, but I think this could be a very good first Pokemon game for him.
Yeah.
And I'd go as far as to say I think this is probably now my favorite Pokemon spin-off game. I think it previously was probably something like a Pokemon Snap. I think new Pokemon Snap was also very good, but and Pokemon Snap will always be like this incredible nostalgic game for me, unquestionably. Yeah. But this, in terms of like a modern Pokemon game, this is the best. But not that I've played a ton, but this is honestly a very good game standalone.
I mean, let's be fair, there is not a huge amount of competition. I mean, you know, like we talk about fucking Pokemon Dash on the DS or like Ranger or like... I know the people seem to like the mystery dungeon games, but from what listening to RFN for years and James Jones talking about how much of a nightmare those are, I don't think there's too much competition.
But Pokemon Champions counts now as a spin-off game.
I guess
in the same way that like Pokemon Stadium was a spin-off game.
Yeah, but, right. Yeah, it's slightly different, but yeah, I see where you're coming from with that.
Pokopia, it's really cool. It's I was like Greg Miller. I was in it for the story and the vibes, and that's what it gave me. Did I need all the life sim stuff for me personally? Not really, but I still enjoyed making what I needed to look neat, and that was very satisfying to do in and of itself.
Right.
I think this game does a great job in appealing to someone even like me who's a bit more similar to Patrick Klepek, doesn't want to build an entire SimCity or something. I thought it was just phenomenal. I was so impressed. I never got the bug in terms of like, right, I'm going to play 4 hours of this in one day, but like just as a gentle thing to check in on, it was very, very satisfying. I would highly recommend Pokopia.
So I've heard from people that it's reflects real-time day-night stuff?
Yeah, so depending on the building project, different building projects have different time they take to complete. So if I wanted to build like a furnace to generate some energy, I think it takes like an hour and a half, an hour in real life clock terms.
But like, is it like Animal Crossing where if you play at night, it's nighttime in the game type of thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Did
you ever see the sunlight in that case?
Yeah, I play at lunch breaks and things. I don't just play at, at evenings all the time.
Yeah, because that's kind of what I'm thinking is like a lot of working adults who play video games tend to only have time at night to play it. So I wonder how many people played this game exclusively, never seeing the sun, which is quite interesting. I think it's an interesting element of this, and also I think the weird thing about Animal Crossing and the time it came out is most people were being able to play it during the day because of the pandemic, right? Exactly. And so I don't think we ever had this phenomenon, but at this point in time, I haven't really heard people talk about this aspect, but it's kind of, I do wish that those games offered you an opportunity if you wanted it to be like brighter outside, that you
good
could
question.
do that. But
there might be an option. But yeah, and then so I was just also going to say, so bigger building projects like the main Pokemon centers or the bigger construction projects take a day, or quote unquote a day. I think you just have to pass 3 a.m. overnight and it will be done. But then
right,
day,
okay.
Yeah.
So if you did it at 2 a.m. and then 3 a.m., it would automatically trigger the next day, basically. Okay.
And yeah, it even feels weird comparing this game to Animal Crossing, honestly, from a kind of like building and creative perspective, because
it feels more Minecraft adjacent than Animal Crossing.
This game just takes the biggest dump on Animal Crossing when it comes to like options and space and things that you can do. Like if you compare the size of space that you have to work with in Pokopia and the number of resources and things, it's hardly comparable to Animal Crossing and the size of that island on the Switch version. Like it's just it's actually insane, like the sheer number of things you can do, like paths and lampposts and houses and tiling and different, because you can both build a preset house, but you can also manually build a house essentially brick by brick,
just out of blocks that you have
exactly.
kind of
I never did that. All of mine were like presets, but yeah, you can buy individual types of panes of glass and this kind of thing and build them and craft them and do all of that. And like I said, the dream islands are the way that the mechanism works in terms of, because you will eventually run out of gold ore in the main mine in the game. So then it's like, where else do I get gold ore? I'll go to the dream island with someone's doll, like I said, Arcanine, and then you'll get all the gold ore. So like all of that is just like Animal Crossing doesn't even delve into like ore and crafting and quite that level. Like this is just like a completely different level of like all of that stuff, which is super cool. And they do cool stuff like who's responsible for all the concrete. Oh, you got to learn it from Conkeldurr because he's the concrete specialist. Like that, it's just stuff like that. This game, I just think is so much better than Animal Crossing. Like, and it's got like for someone like me, it's got the linear story. It's got the beat by beat. It's got missions to do.
Sounds like the character writing is also funny and quirky as well.
Every character is different. There's no repeat. Like, oh, I've seen this personality already, and that was across 110 Pokemon for me. Like the writing is phenomenal. Like I honestly. I like Animal Crossing. This game is so much better. But I'm really happy with the time I had with it. And yeah, 35 hours. Great game.
Damn. I do have to play this at some point.
Yeah.
It is, I think, again, I think I would fall down the rabbit hole sooner than you would as someone who did play a good amount of Minecraft back in the day and who also, I think, committed more to their Animal Crossing island in terms of things that I built there. I definitely have a bit more of a desire to do these types of games than you do, perhaps. But
I mean, I was so like, I want to do more of the town than the specific houses, that like a lot of the houses I had were almost empty in terms of like, because there's so much furniture and all these places you can get. And it's, you can go crazy. And I do think that without spoiling anything, there is a really cool final mission that involves everything you've learned so far, that links to a location in the Pokemon games, but also works really well in terms of like, oh, what furniture are we going to use for this aspect of this thing? Like it's hard to explain, but you just got to get to the end of this game, and I think it's pretty cool what it does. And then the final thing, like it just wraps up in a cool way. I just think it's all done very, very well. So without spoiling anything, but yeah, trying to dangle that carrot for you, MBZ. You're gonna get there and have a good time. No,
it sounds good. I feel like 2026 is the renaissance of Pokemon, especially this episode. So it feels like it's time. It's time for me to get back on the saddle. Great. There was another game I was going to talk about. I'll just really quickly say I beat Super Meat Boy 3D.
Yeah.
I actually finished it in a single day. It was about 5 hours long, but actually 4 hours it took me. I mean it's as good as they could do for this concept. The idea of Super Meat Boy 3D I think is inherently flawed. Just the idea of Super Meat Boy as a precision platformer. Precision is always much harder in 3D because of the space and the depth and everything. You can never be as kind of clinical as you can in a side-scrolling format, where the original game was fully designed around and the movement and momentum, the wall jump, everything. It is like more of an isometric 3D perspective, so it's not like behind the back or anything. But yeah, I enjoyed it just from the sense of like I like a problem to be solved through platforming, and I think this does that pretty well overall. I think there's definitely design issues in it. I don't think it's the most polished thing in the world. I don't think it's the most well thought through in terms of like every level is not a banger in the same way that I think the first game is, and the first game is much better at like teaching you, onboarding you, tutorializing you, and like creating levels that feel memorable. I don't think I would remember any single level from Super Meat Boy 3D, but they were all enjoyable to play through, and I couldn't really put it down, so I just kept playing it all the way until it was done. So in that sense, I guess, that's a bit of an endorsement, but also keep in mind, I just like hardcore, like Celeste Meat Boy style platformers, like the quick death, the quick restart, and this has that, albeit in 3D isometric perspective.
There's not many of those in 3D though, I'd argue.
No, there aren't, and I'd say it's like kind of unique for that. But I think it also convinces me why you shouldn't do this style in 3D
okay.
because it ultimately is not as refined. I think there's a real specific, like, perfect design to games like Meat Boy and Celeste, where like even like Croak that we played recently, the demo, like there's every piece of the platforming space has been used to the perfect degree, and I think when you have 3D, you can inherently never do that because the player has so many more options and choices of where they can go, how they can get places, so you can never be as polished or as specific as a 2D platformer can be in that sense. And I think this just reveals that blatantly, because it is taking the concept of Super Meat Boy exactly and transplanting it into a three-dimensional space. So but yeah, they did add something to like make it a little bit more manageable, which is a dash. So you have an air dash, which is quite nice, and I think that's good for 3D, because in 3D sometimes you need maneuverability within the air just to like readjust yourself and make yourself go where exactly you want to land. Like they have like a little circle underneath Meat Boy, so it shows where you're going to land, which again, an inherent thing you need to make for a 3D game, where a 2D game you never need that because you can judge that distance by just looking at where you are, basically. So yeah, I mean, if you're interested in a quick, very fun 3D platformer that is of that style, then I'd say check it out. But yeah, it's not going to win any awards. It's not going to be a thing I remember in 2 years' time, but it was a good afternoon of listening to podcasts and running through some platforming levels. So nice. I appreciated it for that. So great. Well, that is going to do us for the first segment. We'll be back after a break with your emails. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you in a bit.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the second part of today's show. We went quite a long time in that first segment, MBZ, talking about our beloved Pokemon. So we're going to do some emails, maybe slightly shorter emails than we would do otherwise, but we've got more for next time. I wouldn't worry about that. So we'll cover a couple today. If you would like to send an email into the show, please email thisnintendolife@gmail.com. That's thisnintendolife@gmail.com. We also have a channel in our Discord server. Leave your emails, your comments, your questions over there. That would be greatly appreciated. Dave97 did exactly that on Discord and says, with Pokemon Gen 10 releasing next year, do you think Nintendo can get out a cheaper revision of the Switch 2?
Oh boy, hardware conversations in 2026 when we live in the RAM apocalypse. I had some conversation this week about that, of like, talking about when do we think from an industry standpoint, PlayStation and Steam Machine, all these things are coming out, and I'm like, yeah, the RAM stuff is real bad, isn't it? It just makes any new product on the market not only more expensive because of that, but I guess just less likely to happen as a result. I think had that not, and I don't know when this question was from. It might have been like before this whole like thing started, but
this was a recent Discord question. Like, this is like since all the shenanigans have been happening,
right? Yeah, I guess, it was after the announcement of Wind and Waves coming in 2027. So, yeah, I think this is going to be really tough for Nintendo, just based on that stuff alone, right? Like, when we think about you want to get hardware to go down in price, I think people are worried Nintendo are going to increase the price of the Switch 2 based on all the situations that are going on globally. Like, the PlayStation price hikes have been insane, Like, the Pro is now $950 or something like that. Everything has gone up and keeps going up, and so I feel like in a normal world, it obviously makes a lot of sense for Nintendo to do a Switch 2 Lite or a thing that is along the same lines as what the Switch Lite was.
Right, here's a quiz. When did Switch Lite come out?
I think 2019.
Correct.
2019,
it was
2 years
September
after.
20th, 2019. So yeah, that 2 years.
I'll tell you the reason why is exactly what Dave97 is saying, is because it was Sword and Shield came out in 2019.
Yeah.
So it was positioning it for the new generation of Pokemon. And yeah, this is going to be much harder as a sell for Nintendo, generally speaking. I think the other thing with Switch 2 is it's a larger screen, higher resolution screen as well. And so the Switch 2 Lite, if we want to call it that, would inevitably, I think, have to be bigger than the original Switch Lite was.
Maybe.
And that inherently makes it less portable anyway, so maybe even less of a reason. But I do think this is something that they are thinking about. I don't know, like, what I can't remember, I think it was $100 price difference maybe between these original.
It launched at a price point of $199.99.
Which I think $299 was the Switch 1 price.
Maybe, yeah.
So it was pretty significant.
How much is Switch 2 currently?
This is a great question. I think it launched $450. I think I paid £380, like something like that, I think, for it.
Okay.
I want to say. I think that's the range. Or maybe I paid like 400 and something and I got Mario Kart with it. I think the base version was $380 without Mario Kart,
right?
And then the bundle included it for 30. I think it was 410 actually is what it was. So it's essentially paid £30 for Mario Kart.
Yeah, I think Smith's is showing that Nintendo Switch 2 with Mario Kart World bundle is currently £430, and then Switch 2 without Mario Kart is £386. So yeah.
Okay.
Here's my prediction: they do pump up the price of the Switch 2 Lite. Sorry, the regular Switch 2. And then they bring out the Switch 2 Lite for the current price. And
okay.
Will they have a console that is cheaper than the existing Switch 2 in time for Pokemon Gen 10? Yes. Will it be quote-unquote cheap? Probably not. Will it be cheaper than the standard Switch 2? Yes. Because I reckon they can still get the price down, mainly through the size of the screen is what I'm guessing. Get that smaller screen. Can they get all the power, the guts of the Switch 2 into a smaller unit, that's maybe the trickier thing. You've completed Welcome Tour. You tell me, can they get the guts of that thing into a smaller Switch?
It is distributed, I guess, across like a wider kind of field, so that might be tricky. But I think in terms of like technological advancement, I believe that probably makes sense, right? With the way that all these chips keep getting smaller and all this sort of stuff, like it's probably possible. So I think from a technological advancement standpoint, it probably is possible. It's just a question if those components have come down in price enough for it to be justifiable at that same amount, which I think from what you're saying, like keep it at the same price as the original Switch 2.
Yeah.
I think that is possible based on where we're at and what things are looking like. So if Switch 2 goes up to $500 and this one stays at $400, then that would probably,
I think that's
$450,
doable.
whatever it is.
I think
that makes a lot of sense. And, obviously the Switch Lite originally, and still to this day, you can't break there's no Joy-Con, you can't break anything off the side. So that's a thing that they don't have to worry about as well with this, is like they would make sure, obviously, again,
it's a technology saving.
You lose the mouse control stuff, but I mean, who the hell is even using that? And we're only...
I'm not sure. Yeah, I think already the C button and the mouse control very quickly have become pretty forgettable.
Yeah, and this is always inevitable with gimmicks for a machine, but I feel like this has been faster than most, and I think Metroid Prime 4 is the only one where I can think of where I've tried to use it in an actual game. No other game has really provided it as a legitimate option, aside of course from Balatro on Switch 2. You can play with the mouse. It's perfect. Brilliant.
People kept saying like, oh yeah, it's great for Pokopia, but it's like, I'm playing my Switch 2 handheld. Like I don't know, just at the moment my gaming is like very much Xbox, Overwatch on a big screen, or something on PlayStation like Witcher 3 on a big screen, or I'm doing my little game on the side on Steam Deck or Switch 2, and that's almost, I'm going far more handheld with Switch 2 than I thought I was going to, honestly.
Interesting.
Games like Silksong, Hades 2 last year, I played those games 90% handheld, both of them. Like I think, I don't know, there's just something about, like you've said, MBZ before, like, I just like that feeling of a handheld, like it's just more chill, it's a better vibe, so...
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I don't think there's much that stops them basically from having a light version of the current console that is, removing some of those quote unquote, gimmicks from what it's doing and being cheaper as a result, because then you don't have to have like the mouse technology in there because it's just not needed from that aspect. And I'm trying to think like is there any other like Joy-Con related things, like motion control stuff. I guess you don't have to have those inside the system potentially, but maybe some stuff does remain. It's a possibility the way that you have framed it. I think any like hope of a cheaper Switch 2, it's just not going to happen. Yeah, it's just not possible. Not happening.
Everything is going up and up and up, and it's just getting worse and worse. And yeah, sure, the AI bubble might burst and the price of these components goes down, but the price of every other aspect of your life will go up. So like, it'll be a small benefit in a sea of bad. So it's a bad situation.
A sea of bad is basically a good way to describe the world right now.
Sea of bad. That is the word. Yeah. Great question, Dave. And fingers crossed we'll see something next year.
We'll see.
Aaron H. from the internet has a game for us. Right. Okay. Which Nintendo game would each of you assign to every number on a 10-point scale? Your most quote-unquote Nintendo at 10 out of 10, and then 9, 8, 7, all the way down. Aaron H. Well, like all these games, we like to play them together, MBZ, rather than each to our own. But I think this is interesting because what defines Nintendo? What does most Nintendo mean? And does it mean that most Nintendo right now in 2026, or most Nintendo through their history? Because I do think that modern Nintendo is quite different from traditional Nintendo in
some ways, but also like this company re-released the fucking Virtual Boy this year. Like I think they're still dumb in a lot of ways. They're very Nintendo. Like quote unquote Nintendo, like, I guess we have to define what that means, right? Because
here's an example. Actually, I do think family is important. I think the entire Metroid series isn't applicable to this list.
Does that mean it's like a 1 out of 10 Nintendo game? Is that like, because if we're doing this on a scale, right? The most.
Oh, I was a. Yes.
The most Nintendo game would be a 10 out of 10.
This isn't the top 10 most Nintendo games going from most to least. It's top 10. It's we need something that represents 1 out of 10 Nintendo, as in like it's not very Nintendo. Okay, yeah, no, I hear you. So I agree. Metroid is near the bottom, if not the bottom.
I think, maybe Metroid is our 1 out of 10
but we'll
Nintendo.
Need a specific game. Aaron says game, not game
specific
franchise.
I guess.
We could go game franchise if you'd rather, if that was easier. It could be difficult going.
Yeah, let's say franchise for the moment, I think, because I think specific game, I feel like franchises tend to like, there's obviously different games within franchises, and maybe if we're talking about Marios and Zeldas, that's where you break it out into more some specifics, but I think maybe franchises is a bit easier to
we could split 2D and 3D maybe?
Yeah, we can do that as well. Okay. Yeah, that's a possibility.
Okay. So we start at the bottom then?
I guess so. It's a good example.
Metroid.
I guess like justification wise, like least Nintendo, I think is just about if we define Nintendo as a few different aspects. So like quirky Japanese, unique, innovative ideas that you don't see the industry doing, basically.
And I would argue family oriented is in there too.
Family oriented, I think.
Orientated.
A lot. I know. Shut up. I knew you were going to say that. We just got to deal with it. One day we're gonna do the most NBZ fucking Americanisms 10 to 1. YouTube. So what was I saying? Like what are the factors that make up being Nintendo? I think decision making that is often just not great in terms of like features of their games and what they offer. So like a game like Pokémon Champions is higher up a list like this, I think, because they don't have your ability to like change options and things like a normal company would. To that degree, I think Smash Brothers might be low down this list, because I think it's like from a menu design options perspective less Nintendo. Obviously, it has the history and all that sort of stuff, which
from a history, it's heading out the park is part of the problem.
To be honest, that is also kind of like not very Nintendo, because they don't like sharing their history in like a digestible way. Like
that's Sakurai going against Nintendo's tradition, arguably.
So like Nintendo Museum is not very. It's very Nintendo because it doesn't actually celebrate their history in an interesting way.
It's not actually a museum. It's just
it's not a real museum. It's just like a
warehouse with some stuff in it.
Totally. So I would almost argue that Smash Brothers could be a 2 out of 10 Nintendo game, because it's so like Sakurai drives it.
We can put Smash at 2 for now.
Yeah. So I do think that Metroid 3D works at 1, mainly because of the first person shooter in like. 3D Metroid is the most like Western influenced series, while also still being quite, classic Japanese design from like the original Metroid and Super Metroid, right? So I think it's mainly lower down just because of the aesthetic and the type of game and the less family nature of it, right? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Totally.
I think games like Fire Emblem and Xenoblade should be lower down because they're so narrative focused, and that again is not a thing that Nintendo tends to focus on. And again, they are more core games that are not family applicable. I think there is a bit more of like brightness and heart to Xenoblade, so I might put it like higher than Fire Emblem. But I think Fire Emblem, from like a core like nerdy systems perspective, is also quite less Nintendo, probably.
I think something like Fire Emblem should probably be below Smash Brothers.
That's a good point.
For that,
I think Smash Brothers, the reason I put it so low is just because of how accessible it is from like options standpoint, and everything that goes along with the decisions that Sakurai makes for
I don't disagree on options, but Fire Emblem is just...
It doesn't feel like it should be a Nintendo franchise.
Yeah. Does the fact that Splatoon is a third-person shooter get it low down, or is it quite a good example of modern Nintendo?
I think the thing about Splatoon is it feels very Nintendo in that they are taking a crack at a traditional genre
and making it family friendly.
And making it Nintendo, like Nintendo-fying it in a way of like, yeah, I think part of the other definition of Nintendo is like saying no, or basically going left when the industry goes right. And I think 3D Metroid is to some degree following the industry of like, oh, well, everyone's doing first-person shooters.
Came out at the same time as Halo, yeah.
Yeah, and it's very, very different design-wise, and I think I appreciate that.
Yes.
But I think it's like Twilight Princess, I think would be low down a list versus a Wind Waker, which would be high up a list on the just from a visual standpoint, from a like Twilight Princess, the trailers were so Lord of the Rings influence, and like they're taking influence from like they're going darker when they should be going more family friendly traditionally. So I feel like GameCube era Nintendo had a bit of a like turn towards what everyone else was doing versus when they traditionally try and break out of things. So I feel like Splatoon is definitely not the most Nintendo, but I feel like it's somewhere in the range of like
6 for now.
6 or a 7. Yeah, I think there's an opportunity. I mentioned Xenoblade. Do you think Xenoblade is like below Smash? Do you think Smash goes above Xenoblade in terms of Nintendo-ness? Because I think Monolith Soft are such a distinct entity from Nintendo that they probably should be like a 3 out of 10 versus Smash Brothers. I think Smash Brothers is probably higher than Xenoblade.
I think from what we know, the amount that Sakurai drives what Smash is, the fact that Smash is so dictated by Sakurai makes it un-Nintendo. Like, there's no other, other than Miyamoto and his fixation with Pikmin and Star Fox and all these things.
Yeah.
There is no one else that is like this named character who drives video game development in Nintendo. There just isn't. That never has been. Like, there's been direction led by higher ups and what's his face in the Zelda team and stuff. Like, there's Anuma, like, but he's internal. That's different. It's just a different ethos. So in that sense, like, I kind of agree with you. Smash Brothers should be below like a Xenoblade, arguably. Okay. I don't know. Do you want Xenoblade at 4? Yeah,
it's a very 4 out of 10 Nintendo game, Xenoblade, I think.
Okay, let's do Xenoblade.
I think there's still like a charm to Xenoblade, and I think there is it's still relatively family. Oh, maybe not actually. I'm just trying to. There's lots of bad scenes in those games of like stuff that I don't think Nintendo would usually show. So
let's go high up. Are we thinking like Mario and Zelda are the most quintessentially Nintendo?
You know what? When I first thought about what's the most Nintendo-ass Nintendo game, the first thing that actually came to my mind was fucking Tomodachi Life. Like, really? I think like the thing about it is that it's a family-friendly, quirky Japanese thing that no one else would make type of video game. And when I think about like what's the most Nintendo-ass Nintendo thing, there are things more so than the classic franchises that come to mind for me. And I think like a game...
You could argue stuff like Nintendogs is in that category, and Wii Sports. And right. Like, I think they fill a similar category to Tomodachi.
Right, and I think Tomodachi is especially high because of the use of Miis and their like insistence on using this thing that they had created that they want to keep using despite the fact that we're many generations removed from its origin point. It's a stubbornness that I think is quite Nintendo. I think stubbornness is actually a good factor to Nintendo.
I mean, I think we could probably argue we should have multiple games per number because
you could.
I think Tomodachi Life, Nintendogs, and Wii Sports all need to be 10 out of 10.
Yeah, they are the most like this is what Nintendo is at their core, which is wacky toy makers doing unusual things that you would not expect from any other company in the games industry. Like, another company could make Zelda. I do think another company could make Mario. Not from a design standpoint, but like those are traditional structures for video games. None of these are traditional structures for video games.
Well, I'd push back on that. I agree with you on the structure. It's when you think about the secondary reveal of Mario Odyssey, and you think about something like the giant bomb reaction to the captures.
Yes.
That's so uniquely Nintendo, I feel.
Yes.
And
I think as franchises as well, though, those two franchises, they're probably 9 out. I think both Mario and Zelda, 9,
yeah.
Because they're the very definition of having a brand new idea, and instead of making a new IP, using an existing IP to give that new idea the most success possible. And I think that's part of people's frustration with Nintendo and not doing new IP. But they ultimately, every time they release a new Mario, you could call that a brand new IP because it's so different from what came before and has a different ethos and a different design kind of like perspective that I think both of those could belong as like very, very Nintendo, approaches to the individual franchises. So, yeah. I feel like Star Fox actually is quite high up just from we're going to do, maybe not high up, but I think Star Fox has I'm second guessing myself. Maybe 5 for Star Fox. I think the reason why is that it's both very Nintendo and also very non-Nintendo. I think the idea that they had a game with voice acting
yes.
in the N64 is like such a thing they still are very allergic to. So I feel like that probably makes sense. But then on the other hand, Star Fox Zero exists where Miyamoto's being like, let's use the gamepad in this stupid way that doesn't really appeal to many people, but we think it's a good idea.
Would Star Fox even have voice acting if someone Western like a Dylan Cuthbert didn't even work?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like there's just this Western influence to Star Fox that is trying to be like Thunderbirds, trying to be something that's not traditionally Nintendo. In some ways, the original Star Fox, 64, let's say, is Star Fox 64 doing something a bit like Twilight Princess. It's like this is what the audience wants. This is what we're going to do.
I think so.
So I think 5 for now. If we did individual video games, this would be an incredibly long task, but it would still be quite an interesting one. But
I think for Mario and Zelda, we probably have to distinguish them both as 3D Mario and 3D Zelda, because I think the 2D sides of those franchises are less kind of like crazy in terms of their innovation every single time. So
what about Pikmin?
Yeah, Pikmin feels like a very Nintendo, like it's the definition of a Miyamoto had a dream thing, It's like, I was gardening and I thought this could become a video game. I think that's probably an 8, Pikmin.
I think it's a good 8. Yeah.
Because I think it's similar to Splatoon in that it's their take on a franchise, on a kind of genre that Nintendo traditionally had done nothing with, and I don't think they would even consider it part of that kind of real-time tactics genre space. They just think of it as its own thing that they invented. And it has like such a... The thing about Pikmin is it just feels so... Pikmin 4 especially, it's just so perfectly polished in its design. I think that's another... There's so many elements to Nintendo, facets of what makes something Nintendo, but I think Pikmin 4 is it goes down so easy. It's so smooth from a design perspective that I think that's another element that makes it very, very Nintendo.
What about our 2 favorite platformers, Yoshi and Kirby?
I think Kirby is actually a good 7 here in particular. I think it's
quite a good 7 actually, yeah.
And I think it's because Kirby it's like their canvas to paint on, ironically, given his curse that he suffered. Because he's just like throw shit at the wall as a character.
Yeah.
And I think Nintendo's experimentation is alive within Kirby. I think Kirby is so widely appealing to kids and families and is cute as a character and identity. I think it's just like it's a game that you wouldn't say innovates truly, but is always doing something different and different enough to where I think it probably lands there pretty neatly. As a 7 out of 10 Nintendo.
Is Yoshi a little bit lower because it's just a bit more?
Yeah, I feel like Yoshi probably sits with like Star Fox maybe.
Yeah, I think I agree.
I think there's some innovations with Yoshi, but I don't think it's
Kirby gets more innovations than Yoshi as well.
For sure, yeah, and gets more attention, generally speaking.
Well, Donkey Kong.
Donkey Kong. I think Donkey Kong has to be higher because it's it's about legacy, right?
Yes.
Donkey Kong is like, it's been around for so long. It's
now that Bonanza celebrates the legacy.
Yes.
He's had multiple celebrations of legacy at different games.
Huge legacy, but also I think their recent Donkey Kong renaissance is driven by that desire to never let their franchises wane and become something that gets forgotten about. And I think Donkey Kong represents that quite well.
Is it up there at 9?
I might put it at 9. I was thinking that, because it's it's like the originator, and it's Donkey Kong is a game that has existed in tiny pixel format, and now is going to have a movie made about it, right? I think that shows the legacy of Nintendo, quite broadly. Yeah. So I think it's a 9 out of 10. Nintendo.
We need to stick in 2D Mario and 2D Zelda.
Okay. I think those ones are hard. I think
2D Mario started as the most innovative thing in gaming, and has become one of the least innovative aspects of Nintendo.
Right.
Mario Wonder changed a bit of that, but that's 4 games too late. It's...
Yeah. I feel like both of these probably land at 5 out of 10. They're kind of like the middle point where it's like, okay, they used to be a major deal, but they are kind of have not innovated massively, so they're less Nintendo. Animal Crossing is an interesting one because I think that also sits alongside Pikmin to some degree, but I think it's lower than that because of its iterative nature over time and has never really evolved that significantly. So I might put it at a 6 or a 7 Kirby or Splatoon level in terms of its...
Yeah, it's like Tomodachi Life gets high because it's weird.
I think the original Animal Crossing is not very Nintendo because the villagers were mean to you.
Yeah, well, that's also true, but it's kind of life simmy, and that's not really very Nintendo.
Yeah, they don't really do that as a...
Which fits well with Splatoon. They don't really do shooters.
Yes. Actually, I agree with that. Yeah, I think it probably is a 6 out of 10 Nintendo game.
We're counting Pokemon.
Yeah, Pokemon's a weird one just because it's obviously owned by many companies.
I don't think Pokemon's very Nintendo.
No, I don't think so. I think it's actually...
You have to be a certain age before you can get into it. I think
right. As if the reading aspect, the narrative
aspect. The reading aspect, there you go. It's probably in line with Star Fox. I don't know. What do you think?
I think maybe slightly lower. Maybe Xenoblade's a weird one, but I think they're both RPGs at the end of the day. Yeah. So there's a family barrier to entry there, and I think also every Pokemon game is just the same. Usually, there's such small advancements in terms of innovation, and so it's a similar hit that 2D Mario and 2D Zelda takes at the end of the day.
Do we need to stick 2D Metroid somewhere?
I think honestly 2D Metroid and 3D Metroid are both 1 out of 10. I think they are both such...
There's something about it being 2D that I'd argue it could be one rung above. There's something incredibly Western and non-Nintendo about 3D.
I agree, actually. I agree with that. I think it probably goes alongside Fire Emblem.
Yeah.
Wow, my favorite Nintendo franchises both are 2 out of 10 Nintendo games. So, yeah, that's really says a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, true, but then some of our favorites, 3D Mario, 3D Zelda, are right at the top.
That's true.
I think the fact that Tomodachi Life, Nintendo's Wii Sports...
Labo you could put up there as well, right? Just wacky toy maker
wacky.
Nintendo.
The fact they're at the top rung suggests that, yes, we're Nintendo fans, but I don't think we're quite as into the wild gimmicks as we were growing up through the Wii and DS era.
No, certainly as kids. And I think that speaks to how Nintendo those games are, is because they are speaking to such a family audience at the end of the day.
We're up for that stuff sometimes, just not quite to the level of Phil we had back then.
No. Yeah, it's like a very broad kind of group. I think that covers most of it, right? I think that's pretty much most
that was
games.
That was one I was missing.
Okay.
What was it? Oh God, I've forgotten. Let me look at my.
I feel F-Zero, because F-Zero is definitely a
F-Zero.
1 out of 10 Nintendo series, I would say.
A 1 out of 10.
Yeah, Mario Kart you could put here as well, but like in terms of a racing series, F-Zero is.
Do you think Mario
like,
Kart's a 1 out of 10?
No. I was going to say we should rank Mario Kart as well alongside. Yeah. I think F-Zero it's so fucking difficult, and aesthetically it's just real people, you know? Like there is obviously art style to F-Zero, but like Captain Falcon's just a man. He's not like a quirky dinosaur, you know?
I agree.
And it's just racing, like futuristic. I think the sci-fi doesn't feel very Nintendo to me. I think that's why Metroid and F-Zero kind of land lower.
F-Zero GX is one of the least Nintendo games. I appreciate it's co-made by Sega, but like it's brutal. It's not that family friendly. It's like it's obviously sci-fi, like you said. Like, I think Mario Kart is very high, and I think it's for. I think Mario Kart is Splatoon before Splatoon, and what I mean by that is. Racing games were a thing before Mario Kart, but they weren't appealing to a wide-ranging family audience, and they made the mascot kart racer. It was the first one, so it was the thing that made a racing game appealing to a wide family audience, and I think for that it should be.
I would argue
higher.
It's a 10 out of 10 Nintendo game, just from the sense of it's the family appeal. It's got a like character who's a mascot, and it has lots of different characters that are there. It has the polish and the sheen. It has the innovation of being a racing game that is actually a karting game. They invented a genre.
No, you're
like
right,
I think it has so many that it kind of has to be a Nintendo game, and even to the point of like us being frustrated about decisions that they make with it, which is also an element of being Nintendo is us being annoyed as an audience about the decisions they make about the game as well. So I think it definitely deserves to be there.
I think we covered all the main ones. There's obviously like the Mario sports games, Luigi's Mansion. That's
when you get into like the sub-series and stuff like that.
So more sub-series, so we can leave it there, I think. Shall we run through these very quickly?
Yeah, sure. So our 10 out of 10 ass Nintendo games are Tomodachi Life, Nintendogs, Wii Sports, Labo, and Mario Kart. 9 out of 10, 3D Mario, 3D Zelda, and Donkey Kong. 8 out of 10 is Pikmin. 7 out of 10 is Kirby. 6 out of 10 is Splatoon and Animal Crossing. 5 out of 10 is Star Fox, Yoshi, 2D Mario, and 2D Zelda. 4 out of 10 is Xenoblade and Pokemon. 3 out of 10 is Smash Brothers. 2 out of 10 is Fire Emblem and 2D Metroid, and 1 out of 10 is 3D Metroid and F-Zero. I feel pretty good about that. I think that kind of defines like the Nintendo, every element of what makes a Nintendo game kind of infused across all of these. So,
but very good question, Aaron. Aaron H. If anyone else wants to send in similar style games, we would be more than glad to give them a go.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. That is going to do us for this episode of the show. Bally, before everyone leaves us, tell them how they could be featured on here. Like these fine folks, where can they email our podcast?
Yes, please email ThisNintendoLife@gmail.com. That is ThisNintendoLife@gmail.com.
Great. You can also, of course, go to the Discord, which is linked in the show notes, and post it in the channel called Emails over there, which would be fantastic. And you can find us on YouTube as well if you would like to listen to us there. That is also in the description. You can find us in various places on the internet. One place you can go is patreon.com/ThisNintendoLife, where you can get bonus podcasts from us and other things. And Bally, we'd like to thank some of our supporters.
Yes, thank you to our $10 tier plus patrons. They are Sullivan C, Zach S, Thomas, Matthew, Albert, Wicked Gamer UK Alan, Orange Thunder, Nintendo Man, Turtle, and Ali T. Thank you all for your support, and thank you also to all of our other patrons who support the show. We really, really, really appreciate it. We put out an episode of This Nintendo Life. We talked about a lot of lists. It was a good episode, actually.
It was a fun, off usual type of episode, but it was good fun. So go check that out.
Go check that out for $1.
Yes. You can find us on the internet. We're on Blue Sky. I'm at NBZ. Where are you, Bally?
I'm at Ballyman91. That's BALLYMAN91.
Great. And you can find the podcast at TNL Podcast for updates about the show and various other things. Yes, you can also find us in various places on the internet. You can find us on Spotify and Stitch. You can download us. And that would be a good way to get us into your feed every week by subscribing. And you can also rate and review on different platforms. There's loads of different ones. Wherever you listen, just have a look and see if there's a way to do that. That would be super appreciated. It's the best way for us to get out there into the universe, the world. And people can listen to two people talking about Nintendo. That's what we do. And I think that is going to do it for us for this episode. I feel like there are games coming out, and there's lots of like small games, big games, lots of things happening. I just need to decide what I want to be playing, Bally. I don't know. I don't have anything like on the horizon right now that I'm like in my brain looking forward to, so I'm gonna have to do some research and figure out a plan of action for some video games to be playing. But looking forward to seeing when Nintendo announces some more stuff, because I think that's the thing we're all kind of waiting on at the moment in time.
They're leaving it a little bit late, like they like to do.
A little bit. Rumor is June for a direct, so I'm hoping that's going to happen. Also, we're in April right now. Rumor is that the Star Fox game is going to get announced in April, so maybe by next time.
That's cool.
Yeah. Maybe by next time we'll know about a Star Fox game, so fingers crossed.
That implies it's going to come out a lot sooner than the other stuff they have announced.
Yeah, apparently summer is what people were speculating,
exciting.
So that could be something for us to discuss next time on the episode. So fingers crossed that happens. But until then, we'll just be whittling away at what other video games are out there and taking in all the news and everything going on. And Bally will be sick forever. Correct. Yes.
You got me into it. It's your fault, NBZ. It's your fault.
By the way, it's now legitimate to be talked about on the show because they updated the fucking Switch version as well. So.
Oh, okay. I can check in then.
Check that out, Bally. Great. Lovely. Thank you all so much for listening. We'll be back in a couple of weeks' time with some more podcasting, video games, and the such. Till then, thanks so much. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye. The musical interlude used on today's show was the trainer battle music from Pokémon Diamond and Pearl. Copyright Nintendo 2007.